Number 1. The solid lie, the empty space within matter. Let us begin our journey by contemplating the most fundamental and immediate reality you know, the world of solid objects. Consider the surface you are resting on, the weight of the blanket that covers you, the device you might be holding in your hand. They feel solid, dense, and undeniably real. Our entire lives are built upon the unwavering certainty of solidity. We do not question that the floor will support our weight or that a wall will stop our path. This experience of a solid, tangible world is the primary foundation of our reality, the first and most basic truth our senses report to us every single moment of our waking lives. It is a truth so profound, so constant, that to question it seems absurd. And yet this is precisely where our deconstruction of reality must begin. Because this fundamental truth, the unwavering certainty of solid matter, is perhaps the grandest illusion of them all. The science of the 20th century, peering deep into the heart of matter, revealed a truth that is profoundly counterintuitive and deeply strange. The objects you perceive as solid, from the chair you sit in to the very bones in your body, are not solid at all. They are composed of almost entirely empty space. To understand this, we must journey into the architecture of the atom. Every atom consists of a tiny, impossibly dense nucleus, containing its protons and neutrons. Around this nucleus, at a relatively vast distance, is a cloud of electrons. The scale of this emptiness is difficult for the human mind to comprehend. The classic analogy is this. If the nucleus of an atom were the size of a single marble placed at the center of a grand cathedral, the electrons would be like minuscule specks of dust swirling around in the outermost rafters. Everything in between, the vast, cavernous space of the cathedral itself, would be, for all intents and purposes, completely empty. So if you and everything around you are composed of these atoms, which are themselves 99.99999% empty space, a profound question arises. Why do things feel solid? Why doesn't your hand pass straight through the table when you touch it? The answer lies not in substance, but in force. The sensation of touch and solidity is not the result of two solid objects making contact. It is the result of an incredibly powerful electromagnetic repulsion between the electron clouds of the atoms in your hand and the atoms in the table. As your hand approaches the table, the negatively charged electrons in its atoms repel the negatively charged electrons in the table's atoms. What you are feeling is not solid matter, but an invisible force field, a powerful energetic barrier that prevents the two collections of empty space from occupying the same location. You have never truly touched anything in your entire life. You have only ever felt the force of its electrons pushing back against yours. Let this astonishing idea settle into your consciousness. The world you navigate is not a world of solid objects, but a world of energetic fields and quantum probabilities perceived by your senses as solid for the practical purposes of survival. Your brain has evolved to create a simplified user interface for reality, one that presents a world of solid, reliable objects so that you can interact with it without being overwhelmed by its true, ghostly nature. This is the first and perhaps most significant crack in the foundation of our perceived reality. It is the initial revelation that our senses are not direct windows to the world as it is, but are instead masterful interpreters, translating a deeply strange and empty quantum reality into a story that we can understand. As we begin our journey tonight, consider the solid world around you and contemplate the profound, empty truth that lies hidden just beneath its surface. What other fundamental truths you take for granted might also be a part of this grand illusion? Number 2. The color deception. How your brain invents the visual world. Having contemplated the illusory nature of solidity, our journey into the depths of reality continues with the next pillar of our perception, color. Open and close your eyes for a moment. The world around you is bathed in a spectrum of hues. The deep blue of a night sky, the warm amber of a lamp, the serene green of a plant. Color appears to be a fundamental and intrinsic property of objects. We believe with an almost absolute certainty that a rose is red, that grass is green. We take it for granted that color is a quality that resides in the external world, and objective truth that our eyes simply detect and reveal to us. But this belief, so deeply ingrained in our experience, is another magnificent deception, a masterpiece of our own brain's creation. The truth, as strange as the emptiness within matter, is that color does not exist outside of your mind. What does exist in the external universe is the electromagnetic spectrum, a vast range of waves, including the small band we call visible light. These light waves, or photons, travel through space at different frequencies and wavelengths. When light from a source, such as the sun or a light bulb, strikes an object, that object's surface absorbs certain wavelengths and reflects others. A rose, for example, has a surface with a molecular structure that is primed to absorb most wavelengths of light, but it predominantly reflects those in the range of about 650 nanometers. These reflected photons then travel to your eyes and strike the specialized photoreceptor cells in your retina known as cones. We have 3 types of cones, each sensitive to different ranges of wavelengths, corresponding roughly to what we call red, green, and blue. Up to this point, there is no color. There is only physics, photons and wavelengths. There is only biology, photoreceptive cells reacting to a stimulus. The magic, the very creation of color, happens in the next step. The cones send electrical signals through the optic nerve to the visual cortex at the back of your brain. It is here, in the silent, dark theater of your mind, that these simple, colorless electrical impulses are interpreted and miraculously transformed into the rich, vibrant, and subjective experience that we call color. Your brain assigns the quality of redness to the signals that originate from photons with a 650 nanometer wavelength. There is nothing inherently red about those photons or those wavelengths. Red is an invention, a label, a qualitative experience, a quale, generated entirely within your skull. It is a translation, not a reception. Your brain is the artist that paints the black and white canvas of the physical world with a palette of colors that it and it alone has created. This revelation is profound. It means that every person lives in their own private, internally generated universe of color. While most of us have learned to associate the same labels, like red, to the same wavelengths, we have no way of ever knowing if your subjective experience of red is the same as mine. More than that, it means the universe itself is colorless. The distant galaxies, the vibrant nebulas, and the landscapes of faraway planets are, in their fundamental state, a dance of matter and energy without hue. The beautiful colors we see in images from telescopes are assigned by scientists to help us visualize data that is far outside our visible spectrum. The stunning beauty of the visual world, its warmth and its vitality, is a gift that your own consciousness bestows upon you every single moment. As you contemplate the world around you, remember that you are not merely a spectator of a colorful show. You are the painter, the projector, and the sole audience of your own unique
visual symphony.
Number 3, the echo chamber, the subjective nature of sound. We have deconstructed the solidity of matter and the objectivity of color. Now, let us turn our attention to the air around us, to the realm of sound. You hear the calm tone of my voice, the subtle hum of the room, perhaps the distant murmur of the world outside. Like sight, our sense of hearing feels like a direct window to reality. We believe that a bell has a ring, that a whisper has a softness. Sound seems to be an external phenomenon, a property of the world that travels through the air and is simply received by our ears. Yet, just as with color, the rich qualitative experience of sound is not a property of the external world, but a complex and beautiful construction of your brain. In the silent, empty spaces between atoms, there is no music, no speech, no sound at all. What exists in the physical world are vibrations. When an object, like a guitar string, is plucked, it vibrates rapidly. This vibration pushes against the surrounding air molecules, creating waves of compression and rarefaction that travel outwards. These are pressure waves, purely mechanical disturbances propagating through a medium. They are not, in themselves, sound. These waves travel through the air and eventually reach your ear. They are funneled into the ear canal, where they cause your eardrum to vibrate in sympathy. These vibrations are then transferred through a series of tiny, intricate bones in your middle ear to a fluid-filled, spiral-shaped structure called the cochlea. Inside the cochlea, thousands of tiny hair cells are bent by the fluid's movement, a movement that corresponds to the frequency and amplitude of the original pressure wave. Up to this point, everything is still a matter of pure physics and mechanics. Pressure waves, vibrating membranes, moving bones, and bending hair cells. The true genesis of sound occurs when these tiny hair cells convert the mechanical motion into electrical signals. These signals then travel along the auditory nerve to the auditory cortex in your brain. And it is here, in the quiet, mysterious realm of your neural networks, that these colorless, silent electrical impulses are interpreted and transformed into the rich, subjective experience of sound. Your brain creates the perception of pitch based on the frequency of the wave, the perception of loudness based on its amplitude, and the complex quality of timbre based on the wave's intricate form. The melody of a piano, the comforting sound of rain, the emotional weight of a loved one's voice, these are not out there in the world. They are neurological symphonies, composed and performed entirely within your own mind. This means that the universe itself is fundamentally silent. A supernova exploding in a distant galaxy, two black holes colliding, the formation of a star. These are cataclysmic events of immense energy and vibration. But without a mind to interpret those vibrations, they occur in absolute, profound silence. The world is a silent movie, and your brain is the masterful composer and sound designer, creating a rich, immersive soundtrack for your personal experience of reality. As you listen now to the sounds around you and to the sound of my voice, remember that you are not just a passive listener. You are the creator of the very soundscape you are experiencing, a testament to the incredible architectural power of your own mind.
Number 4. The time warp, your mind's inconsistent internal clock. Having questioned the solidity of matter, the objectivity of color, and the external nature of sound, we now turn to the most fundamental and elusive dimension of our reality, time. We experience time as a constant, universal, and forward-flowing river. The second hand on a clock seems to tick with an unyielding, objective regularity. We believe that a minute for you is a minute for me, and a minute for someone across the world. Time feels like the ultimate, impartial backdrop against which all events unfold. It is the steady rhythm of the cosmos, Yet, this perception of a consistent, objective time is another profound illusion. One that is constantly being warped, stretched, and compressed by the intricate and subjective workings of your own brain. Neuroscience reveals that we do not have a single, centralized clock in our brain that measures time objectively. Instead, our perception of time is a complex and distributed process, pieced together from various sensory inputs, emotional states, and levels of attention. Your brain constructs your sense of time on the fly, and this construction is remarkably fluid and inconsistent. This is why our experience of time is so famously subjective. When you are engaged in a captivating activity, hours can feel like minutes. This is because your brain, engrossed in the task, allocates fewer cognitive resources to monitoring the passage of time. Conversely, when you are bored, anxious, or in pain, a few minutes can feel like an eternity, as your heightened state of awareness causes your brain to process more temporal frames per second, stretching the experience out. This phenomenon is even more pronounced in moments of extreme danger. People who have survived life-threatening events often report that time seemed to slow down dramatically, allowing them to perceive events in slow motion. This isn't a supernatural event, it's a powerful trick of the brain. During a crisis, the amygdala, your brain's fear center, goes into overdrive. This heightened state of arousal causes your brain to record memories with a much greater density and detail than usual. When you later recall the event, there is so much more information packed into that short period that your brain interprets the memory as having lasted longer than it actually did. You didn't experience more time, you simply created a richer memory of it. The implications of this are staggering. It means that the steady, linear flow of time we perceive is not a property of the external universe, but a narrative created by our own consciousness. Your personal timeline is a subjective story, not an objective measurement. This idea, while unsettling, is also consistent with modern physics. Einstein's theory of relativity showed that time is not absolute, but is relative to the observer's frame of reference, slowing down at high speeds or in strong gravitational fields. Your brain, in its own way, creates its own personal relativity. For our contemplation, reflect on your own relationship with time. Think of moments when it has flown by and moments when it has dragged on. Recognize that this time warp is not an external phenomenon, but an internal one. The rhythm of your life is not set by a cosmic metronome, but by the ever-shifting, deeply personal, and beautifully inconsistent orchestra of your own mind.
Number 5. The sensory prison, the universe beyond human perception. We have established that what we perceive, solidity, color, and sound, is a construction of our minds. Now let us contemplate the other side of this revelation, the vast, unimaginable reality that we are completely incapable of perceiving. We navigate the world through a very narrow set of sensory windows. Our eyes can only detect a tiny sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum, a small band of visible light nestled between the vast ranges of infrared and ultraviolet. Our ears can only pick up a limited range of frequencies, deaf to the low rumbles that elephants use to communicate, or the high-pitched calls of bats. Our sense of smell is rudimentary compared to that of a dog. Our entire experience of the world is filtered through these limited biological instruments. We are, in a very real sense, living within a sensory prison of our own biology. Imagine what the universe might be like to a being with different senses. A creature that could see radio waves would perceive a world filled with the invisible chatter of our communication technologies, a sky ablaze with the signals from distant pulsars and galaxies. A being that could sense magnetic fields would navigate the Earth not by sight, but by feeling the invisible lines of force that wrap around our planet.
A creature with thermal vision would see the world not in colors, but as a vibrant landscape of heat signatures, the warm glow of living things standing out against the cool background of the inanimate world. These are not fantasies. These are real physical phenomena that are completely invisible and inaccessible to us. The reality we experience is not reality itself. It is a user interface designed by evolution for a single specific purpose: survival. Our senses did not evolve to give us a complete and accurate picture of the universe. They evolved to give us just enough information to find food, avoid predators, and reproduce. The German biologist Jakob von Uexküll called this filtered, species-specific reality the Umwelt. Every creature, from a bat to a bee, to a human, lives within its own unique Umwelt, its own bubble of perception, experiencing only a tiny fraction of the total possible reality. We are all locked within our own biological story, convinced that our particular chapter is the entire book. This realization is both humbling and profoundly mind-expanding. It means that the universe is infinitely richer, stranger, and more complex than we can ever hope to perceive directly. There are entire dimensions of existence, entire modes of being that are flowing around us and through us in every moment, completely beyond our awareness. What we call reality is just a slice, a narrow bandwidth of the cosmic symphony. For our contemplation tonight, let the walls of your sensory prison become transparent. Imagine the unseen energies, the unheard frequencies, the unfelt fields that fill the space around you. Recognize that your reality is a beautiful but profoundly limited construction. The true universe is a place of infinite, unimaginable wonder, and we are blessed to perceive even a small fleeting echo of its grandeur.
Number 6, the blind spot, how your brain fills in the gaps. Our deconstruction of perceived reality now takes us to a specific, tangible example of our brain's role as an active creator, not a passive receiver. We journey to a literal and metaphorical blind spot that exists within your own field of vision. In the back of each of your eyes, at the point where the optic nerve connects to the retina, there is a small area that contains no photoreceptor cells, no rods, no cones. This is the optic disc. It is a physical hole in your visual field, a patch of complete blindness in each eye. Right now, as you are listening, there are 2 significant gaps in your perception of the world, 2 black holes from which no visual information is being received. And yet you do not perceive them. Your visual world appears seamless, whole, and complete. Why? Because your brain is a masterful storyteller and it abhors a vacuum. The phenomenon of the blind spot is a stunning demonstration of a process called filling in. Your brain, upon receiving no information from this specific part of the retina, does not simply show you a black spot. That would be an honest report of the data, but it would be distracting and unhelpful for survival. Instead, your brain makes an educated guess. It takes information from the surrounding area, the colors, the textures, the patterns, and it paints over the blind spot with a plausible fabrication. If you are looking at a blue wall, your brain fills the gap with blue. If you are looking at a patterned carpet, your brain continues the pattern seamlessly across the void. It creates a piece of virtual reality and inserts it so perfectly into your perception that you never, ever notice the difference. You are actively hallucinating a part of your visual field in every waking moment, and you are completely unaware of it. This is not a minor quirk of our visual system. It is a profound insight into the very nature of perception. It reveals that your brain is not a passive camera that simply records what is there. It is an active, predictive, and creative engine. It constantly builds models of the world based on past experience and sensory input. And when it encounters missing data, it confidently fills in the gaps with its best guess. This process is happening all the time, not just with the optic blind spot, but with all of our senses. Our brain smooths out the imperfections, completes the incomplete patterns, and constructs a coherent, stable narrative from a messy, intermittent, and often contradictory stream of data. This means that a significant portion of what you perceive as objective reality is in fact a sophisticated and well-informed fabrication, an invention of your own mind designed to create a seamless experience. For our contemplation, consider the metaphorical implications of this biological fact. If your brain is actively filling in the gaps in your vision, where else is it filling in the gaps? What assumptions, beliefs, or stories about the world, about others, or about yourself are you accepting as objective reality when they might just be your brain's best guess, painted over a patch of the unknown? The blind spot is a humble reminder that we are all co-creators of our own reality, constantly and unconsciously filling in the blanks to make our story of the world feel whole.
Number 7. The predictive engine. Are we hallucinating consensus reality? Building upon the revelation of the blind spot, we now explore a more radical and comprehensive theory of perception that is gaining significant traction in modern neuroscience. This is the idea of the brain as a predictive engine. This theory suggests that our experience of reality is not a bottom-up process, where we passively receive sensory data and then build a picture of the world. Instead, it proposes that perception is a top-down process. Your brain is constantly, actively, and unconsciously generating a hypothesis or a controlled hallucination of the world around you, based on its past experiences, its memories, and its internal models. The sensory data that comes in from your eyes, ears, and other senses is not used to create reality from scratch. It is used primarily to check, to correct, and to update this ongoing, internally generated hallucination. Think of it this way. Your brain is not asking what is out there. It is constantly predicting, based on everything I know, this is what should be out there. It then uses your senses to check for prediction errors. As long as the incoming sensory data roughly matches the brain's prediction, you experience a smooth, stable reality. It is only when there is a significant mismatch, a prediction error, that you become consciously aware of something. A sudden, unexpected sound, for example, registers so strongly because it violates your brain's prediction of a quiet environment. Most of your conscious experience, therefore, is simply your brain confirming that its hallucination is a good enough fit for the world. This model explains many strange perceptual phenomena. It explains why we are so good at recognizing patterns and seeing faces in random clouds or wood grain. Our brain is constantly trying to fit its internal models onto ambiguous data. It explains the power of the placebo effect, where the brain's strong prediction or belief that a treatment will work can actually generate a real physiological response. It also provides a deeper understanding of our own biases. Our pre-existing beliefs and expectations literally shape what we perceive, as our brain actively seeks out and prioritizes sensory information that confirms its predictions, while often ignoring data that contradicts them. The most profound implication of this theory is that your experience of reality is a delicate dance between your internal predictions and the external world. You are not a passive observer of an objective reality. You are an active participant, a co-creator, constantly projecting your own model onto the world and then refining it. When we agree with others on what is real, it is because our individual,
controlled hallucinations are similar enough to be compatible. We are, in a sense, hallucinating a consensus reality. For our contemplation tonight, consider the world you perceive as an intricate, internally generated dream, constantly being checked against an unknowable, external reality. What are the core predictions your brain is making right now about your safety, your identity, and your place in the world? And how do these deep, unconscious predictions shape the very fabric of your perceived existence?
Number 8. The unreliable witness. The myth of perfect, objective memory. We often think of our memories as a vast internal library or a digital video archive where past events are stored accurately and can be retrieved at will. We believe that a memory, especially a vivid or emotional one, is a faithful recording of what actually happened. We rely on our memories to construct our sense of self, our personal history, and our understanding of the world. But modern psychology and neuroscience have revealed a startling and unsettling truth. Memory is not a recording device. It is a creative and highly malleable storytelling process. Your memory is not a witness to the past. It is an unreliable narrator, constantly editing, reinterpreting, and even inventing details to create a coherent, but not necessarily accurate story. Every time you recall a memory, you are not simply replaying an old file. You are actively reconstructing the event from fragmented pieces of information stored across different parts of your brain. And in this process of reconstruction, the memory is vulnerable to change. Your current mood, your present beliefs, and the context in which you are recalling the memory can all influence and alter the story you tell yourself. Details can be unconsciously added, removed, or distorted to better fit your current narrative or self-image. This is why two people can have vastly different recollections of the same shared event. Each has reconstructed it through the filter of their own unique mind. This malleability is most evident in the phenomenon of false memories. Scientific studies have repeatedly shown that it is surprisingly easy to implant entirely false memories into a person's mind. Through suggestion and guided imagery, researchers have convinced people that they were once lost in a shopping mall as a child, or that they took a hot air balloon ride, even when these events never occurred. The subjects often remember these fabricated events with genuine emotion and a high degree of confidence, creating rich, detailed sensory descriptions of something that never happened. This demonstrates that the line between a real memory and a vividly imagined one can be incredibly blurry within the brain. This understanding of memory has profound implications for our sense of identity. If our past is not a fixed, objective record, but a constantly evolving story, then what does that say about who we are? Our sense of a continuous self is largely built upon the narrative of our memories. If that narrative is fluid and unreliable, then perhaps our self is too. For our contemplation, consider a strong memory from your own past. Recognize that this memory is not a perfect photograph of a past moment. It is a present-day reconstruction, a story you are telling yourself right now. How might that story have changed over time? What details might be inventions of your own creative mind? This is not to say that your past is meaningless, but to embrace the idea that you are not just a product of your past. You are the active and often creative storyteller of it. Number 9. The ghost in the machine. The elusive nature of a central self. We have questioned the reality of the external world, But now we turn our inquiry to the most intimate reality of all, the feeling of being you. Inside your mind, it feels as though there is a central command center, a single continuous entity that is the I, who is thinking, feeling, and experiencing. This is the ego, the self, the ghost in the machine. We feel with absolute certainty that there is a singular consciousness, a little person inside our head who is at the controls, looking out through our eyes and listening through our ears. This feeling of a unified, enduring self is the bedrock of our identity. But what if this too, this very sense of I, is another sophisticated illusion created by the brain? Philosophers like David Hume and Buddhists have long argued that if you engage in deep introspection and look for this central self, you will never find it. When you look inward, you can find a thought, a feeling, a sensation, a memory, or an impulse. But you can never find the thinker behind the thought, the feeler behind the feeling. There is no single, static entity to be found, only a constantly shifting stream of mental events. From this perspective, the self is not a thing, but a process. It is a story that the brain tells itself to unify a vast collection of disparate and often contradictory experiences. It's a useful fiction, a center of narrative gravity that helps us make sense of our lives, but it has no independent existence. Modern neuroscience seems to support this view. There is no single spot in the brain that corresponds to the self or to consciousness. Rather, our sense of identity appears to emerge from the complex, distributed interactions of countless different neural networks, all working in parallel. Neuroscientist Michael Dazzagana, through his work with split-brain patients, proposed the split-brain interpreter theory. He suggested that the left hemisphere of our brain has a special module whose job is to create plausible, after-the-fact explanations for our behaviors, thoughts, and feelings, which are often driven by unconscious or nonverbal parts of our brain. This interpreter creates a coherent, continuous narrative of why I did what I did, giving us the illusion of a single rational agent in charge. The self you feel you are, then, may not be the captain of the ship, but rather the ship's press secretary, who observes the ship's movements and then creates a compelling story about a deliberate and unified journey. This is a deeply unsettling, yet potentially liberating idea. If there is no fixed central self, then we are not bound by a static identity. We are more like a flowing river than a solid statue, constantly changing and recreating ourselves in every moment. For our contemplation tonight, try to observe your own thoughts as they arise. Can you find the I that is thinking them? Or do you only find the thoughts themselves? What if you are not the ghost in the machine, but the machine itself, in all its complex, mysterious, and ever-changing glory?
Number 10. The language cage. How words create the boundaries of thought. Our journey into the constructed nature of reality now arrives at the very tool we are using to conduct this exploration, language. We often think of language as a neutral tool for describing an objective, pre-existing reality. We believe there are things in the world, and we simply apply word labels to them. A tree is a tree, the sky is the sky. But a profound philosophical and linguistic idea, known as the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis or linguistic relativity, suggests that this is not the case. It proposes that the language you speak does not just describe your reality, It actively shapes and constrains it. The structure, the vocabulary, and the grammar of your native tongue can influence, and in some cases even determine, what you are capable of perceiving and thinking. For example, some languages have many different words for concepts that are described by a single word in English. The Russian language has multiple, distinct words for different shades of blue, and studies have shown that native Russian speakers are able to perceive and discriminate between these shades faster and more accurately than English speakers. Their language has literally sharpened their visual perception. Similarly, some indigenous languages lack a concept of linear time as we know it, and their speakers perceive and interact with the world in a way that is not structured around a past, present, and future. Their reality is structured differently because their language is structured differently. This suggests that we live within a language cage. The world we experience is filtered and organized by the grammatical and lexical categories that our language provides us. If our language has no word for a particular concept, it becomes incredibly difficult, if not impossible, for us to think about it clearly. Language is not a window through which we view the world. It is the set of colored lenses we are forced to wear. It carves up the seamless, continuous flow of raw experience into discrete objects, concepts, and relationships, and we then mistake that linguistic map for the territory itself. The implications of this are profound. It means that people who speak different languages may not just be describing the same world with different words, they may actually be living in subtly different subjective realities. It also suggests that the limits of our language are the limits of our world. To expand our reality, we must expand our language by learning new ones, by creating new words, or by using tools like poetry and metaphor to point towards experiences that lie beyond our conventional linguistic categories. For our contemplation, consider a complex emotion you have felt for which there is no perfect word in your language. By trying to describe it, you are pushing against the bars of your language cage. Recognize that the reality you inhabit is a beautiful but ultimately limited story, told in a single tongue. The true, unlanguaged reality is infinitely more vast, more fluid, and more mysterious.
Number 11. The nature of pain. Is it real or a brain signal? Our exploration now turns to one of the most immediate, undeniable, and powerful aspects of our conscious experience: pain. When you stub your toe, burn your hand, or feel the ache of a headache, the sensation of pain feels utterly real. It seems to be a direct and objective property of the injury, a signal originating from the damaged part of your body. We believe that the pain is in our foot or in our head. It is a raw, fundamental, and inescapable part of physical reality. And yet, just like color and sound, the subjective experience of pain is not located in your body tissues. It is a complex, multifaceted, and entirely subjective creation of the brain, a sophisticated opinion on the state of your body, rather than a direct report. From a neurological perspective, what happens when you injure yourself is that specialized nerve endings called nociceptors send electrical signals up your spinal cord to your brain. These signals are not pain signals. They are purely informational. They are a stream of data that simply says, "Warning, tissue damage has occurred at this location." That is all. The entire qualitative experience of pain, the sharp, throbbing, burning, aching sensation, is generated exclusively within the brain after it receives and interprets these signals. Different parts of the brain, including those responsible for emotion, attention, and memory, all collaborate to create the complex and unpleasant experience we label as pain. This is why the experience of pain is so remarkably malleable. The same degree of physical injury can result in vastly different levels of perceived pain, depending on the context and our psychological state. A soldier in the heat of battle might suffer a severe injury and feel almost nothing, because their brain, flooded with adrenaline and focused on survival, has turned down the volume on the pain signals. Conversely, a person who is anxious or depressed might experience chronic pain that feels debilitating, even when there is little or no corresponding physical damage, because their brain has become hypersensitive and is turning up the volume. The phenomenon of phantom limb pain, where an amputee feels intense pain in a limb that no longer exists, is a powerful and poignant demonstration of this. The pain is not in the missing limb. It is being generated entirely by the brain's map of the body. This understanding reframes pain not as an enemy, but as a complex and highly personal protective system. It is an alarm, an opinion created by your brain to motivate you to protect your body from harm. But sometimes, this alarm system can become faulty, overactive, or stuck in the on position. This doesn't make the pain any less real to the person experiencing it. In fact, it confirms that the experience of pain is fundamentally a phenomenon of consciousness, not just of tissue. For our contemplation tonight, consider the nature of discomfort in your own body. Recognize that the sensation is not the injury itself, but your brain's interpretation of it. This separation doesn't magically make the pain disappear, but it can create a space of observation. It allows you to see it not as an objective assault on your being, but as a complex signal from your own mind, a signal whose volume and meaning can, with practice and awareness, sometimes be changed.
Number 12. Plato's Allegory of the Cave, the shadows on our wall. As we conclude this first act of our journey, having deconstructed the reliability of our senses and our most basic perceptions, we find ourselves standing before the entrance to an ancient and powerful philosophical metaphor. This is Plato's Allegory of the Cave, from his masterwork, The Republic. It is a story that, for over 2 millennia, has served as a profound and unsettling illustration of the human condition and our relationship with reality. Plato asks us to imagine a group of people who have lived their entire lives chained inside a deep, dark cave. They are positioned in such a way that they can only face a single blank wall in front of them. Behind them, unseen, is a burning fire. And between the fire and the prisoners, there is a raised walkway where other people walk, carrying various objects and puppets. The fire casts the shadows of these objects onto the wall that the prisoners are facing. For these prisoners, this procession of flickering shadows is the only reality they have ever known. They give names to the shadows, they study their movements, and they believe that these two-dimensional shapes are the true and only objects in existence. They have no concept of the fire, of the puppets, or of the real world outside the cave. Their entire universe is a flat, shadowy illusion, and they are completely unaware of their own imprisonment. Now, Plato asks us to imagine that one of these prisoners is suddenly freed. He is forced to turn around and see the fire and the objects that cast the shadows. The light would be painful to his eyes, which are accustomed to the darkness, and the real objects would seem less real to him than the familiar shadows he has always known. He would be confused, frightened, and would likely want to return to the comfort of his familiar, shadowy reality. But suppose he is then dragged, against his will,
up a steep and rugged path and out of the cave into the world above. At first, he would be completely blinded by the brilliant light of the sun, but as his eyes slowly adjust, he would begin to see the true nature of reality for the first time. The trees, the animals, the water, and finally the sun itself, which he would recognize as the source of all light and life. This journey out of the cave is a metaphor for the philosopher's journey from the world of sensory illusion to the world of true knowledge, Plato's realm of forms. The shadows on the wall represent our everyday, unexamined perception of reality. The escape from the cave represents the difficult and often painful process of questioning our assumptions and seeking a deeper truth through reason and philosophy. The sun represents the ultimate form of the good, the source of all reality and all understanding. The allegory is a powerful warning that what we perceive as reality might be a mere shadow of a much deeper, more fundamental truth. For our contemplation tonight, let us sit with this ancient image. In what ways might we be like the prisoners in the cave? What are the shadows on our own personal walls, the ingrained beliefs, the cultural assumptions, the sensory limitations that we mistake for the whole of reality? And what would it take to begin the difficult journey of turning around to face the disorienting light of a deeper, more authentic understanding?
Number 13. The Two-Slit Experiment. The Ultimate Quantum Mystery. We now leave the realm of philosophical allegory and descend into the strange, bewildering, and experimentally verified world of quantum mechanics. This is where our deconstruction of reality moves from the limitations of our perception to the fundamental nature of reality itself. We begin with what the famous physicist Richard Feynman called the only mystery of quantum mechanics. An experiment so simple in its setup, yet so profound and unsettling in its implications that it shatters our classical, common-sense view of the universe. This is the double-slit experiment. Imagine a simple setup. We have a barrier with two thin parallel slits in it. On one side, we have a device that can shoot out tiny particles like electrons, one at a time. On the other side, we have a detector screen that records where each electron lands. First, let's cover one of the slits and fire the electrons. As expected, the electrons that pass through the open slit create a single band on the detector screen, right behind the slit. It's like firing tiny pellets through a hole. They land in a predictable spot. Now, if we cover the other slit and repeat the experiment, we get the same result: a single band behind the other open slit. Now comes the mystery. What happens if we open both slits and fire the electrons, one at a time? Our classical intuition tells us we should see two distinct bands on the screen, one behind each slit, as each electron must pass through either the left slit or the right slit. But this is not what happens. Instead, what appears on the screen is a complex interference pattern, a series of multiple alternating bright and dark bands. This is the telltale signature of a wave. It's the pattern you would see if you sent water waves through two openings. The waves would interfere with each other, creating peaks and troughs. But how can this be? We are firing the electrons one at a time. Each individual electron seems to be behaving like a wave, passing through both slits simultaneously.
and then interfering with itself before landing on the screen. The strangeness deepens. The experimenters, perplexed, decide to place a detector at the slits to see which slit each electron actually takes. They want to catch the electron in the act of passing through one slit or the other. When they do this, the mystery intensifies. The very act of observing which slit the electron goes through causes the interference pattern to vanish completely. The electrons stop behaving like waves and start behaving like particles again, creating just two simple bands on the screen, exactly as our classical intuition predicted. It is as if the universe knows it is being watched, and it changes its behavior accordingly. This experiment reveals a fundamental and deeply uncomfortable truth. At the quantum level, reality is not fixed. Particles can exist in a state of wave-like potential, a cloud of possibilities, and the act of measurement or observation seems to be what forces this potential to collapse into a single definite reality.
Number 14. The observer effect. Does looking change what is real? Building directly upon the profound mystery of the double-slit experiment, we now confront its most startling implication head-on. This is the observer effect. In classical physics, the world we grew up with, the act of observation is a passive one. We assume that when we look at an object, we are simply gathering information about a pre-existing reality. The moon is still there, orbiting the Earth, whether we look at it or not. The observer is separate from the observed system. But quantum mechanics tears this comfortable assumption apart. It suggests that at the most fundamental level of reality, the act of observation is not passive at all. It is an active, participatory process that is inextricably linked to the reality being observed. The observer, it seems, helps to create the very reality they are measuring. In the double-slit experiment, the electron exists as a wave of potential, a cloud of probabilities passing through both slits at once. It is not a particle in a definite location. It is only when an observation is made, when a detector is placed at the slits to determine its path, that this wave of potential collapses into a single definite particle at a single definite location. The act of looking, of measuring, seems to force the universe to make a choice. Before the observation, the electron was a wave of possibilities. After the observation, it is a particle with a concrete history. The question of where was the particle before we measured it becomes, in a quantum sense, meaningless. It wasn't anywhere specific. It was everywhere it could have been, all at once. This concept has led to decades of intense debate among physicists and philosophers. What constitutes an observer? Does it have to be a conscious human being? Most physicists argue that it does not. Any interaction with a macroscopic measuring device, a photon detector, a Geiger counter, is enough to collapse the wave function and force a quantum system into a definite state. The universe doesn't need a mind to observe it. It just needs to interact with another part of the physical world in a way that records its state. In this view, the observer effect is really a measurement effect, a physical interaction, not a mystical one. However, the more radical and mind-bending interpretations, though not mainstream, continue to linger. Philosophers and some physicists have wondered if consciousness itself plays a more fundamental role. Could it be that the universe remains a vast uncollapsed superposition of probabilities until a conscious mind observes it, thereby collapsing the wave function and creating a single definite reality? This idea, sometimes called the participatory anthropic principle, suggests that the universe and conscious observers are codependent, co-creating each other. The universe gives rise to conscious beings, and conscious beings, through the act of observation, give a concrete reality to the universe. For our contemplation tonight, let go of the idea of being a separate, passive viewer of the world. Imagine instead that you are an active participant in a cosmic dance. What if your very act of looking at the world around you is not just seeing what is there, but is playing a fundamental role in bringing what is there into definite being?
Number 15. The wave of potential, the nature of superposition. Let us delve deeper into the core concept that makes the quantum world so profoundly strange and different from our own. This is the principle of superposition. In our classical, everyday world, an object can only be in one state at a time. A coin, when flipped, will land as either heads or tails. A light switch is either on or off. An object is either here or there. Our reality is a reality of definite, exclusive states. But in the quantum realm, this is not the case. A quantum particle, like an electron or a photon, can exist in a superposition of multiple states simultaneously. It is not a matter of us not knowing which state it is in. The particle is, in a very real sense, in all possible states at once. The most famous thought experiment designed to illustrate the absurdity of this concept when applied to our macroscopic world is Schrödinger's cat. The physicist Erwin Schrödinger imagined a cat placed in a sealed box. Inside the box with the cat is a tiny amount of a radioactive substance, a Geiger counter, a hammer, and a vial of poison. The setup is arranged so that if a single atom of the radioactive substance decays, a purely random quantum event, the Geiger counter will detect it, triggering the hammer to smash the vial, releasing the poison, and killing the cat. According to quantum mechanics, until we open the box and make an observation, the radioactive atom is in a superposition of both having decayed and not having decayed. If the atom is in a superposition, Schrödinger argued, then the entire system linked to it must also be in a superposition. This means that, according to a strict interpretation of quantum mechanics, the cat inside the box is simultaneously both alive and dead until the moment we open the box and look. The act of our observation is what forces the system to collapse into one of the two definite states, a live cat and an intact atom, or a dead cat and a decayed atom. This thought experiment was not meant to be taken literally, but to highlight the paradoxical and seemingly nonsensical implications of applying quantum rules to the world we experience. But superposition is not just a theoretical curiosity. It is a real, experimentally verified property of the quantum world. It is the very principle that makes quantum computing theoretically possible. As a quantum bit, or a qubit, can hold the values of both 0 and 1 at the same time, allowing for immense computational power. What this means for the nature of reality is profound. It suggests that at its most fundamental level, reality is not a collection of definite things, but a shimmering, probabilistic wave of potential. It is a world of possibilities, not actualities. The solid, definite world we experience is an emergent property, a classical illusion that arises from the collapse of this underlying quantum potential. For our contemplation, imagine the world around you not as it is, but as a vast field of potential. What if every object, every event, is just one possible outcome drawn from an infinite sea of possibilities? In this view, reality is not a static state, but a constant process of potential becoming actual, a continuous dance between what could be and what is.
Number 16. The spooky connection. Quantum entanglement across space. Our journey into the quantum enigma now leads us to what Albert Einstein famously and dismissively called spooky action at a distance. This is the phenomenon of quantum entanglement, one of the most bizarre, counterintuitive, and yet experimentally confirmed predictions of quantum mechanics. Entanglement describes a special connection that can exist between two or more quantum particles. When particles are entangled, they are no longer independent entities, but become part of a single, unified quantum system, even if they are separated by vast distances. Their fates are inextricably linked. Imagine we have two entangled electrons. A property of an electron is its spin, which when measured can be found to be either up or down. According to quantum mechanics, before we measure them, each electron is in a superposition of both spin up and spin down. However, because they are entangled, we know that if we measure one and find its spin to be up, we will instantly, with absolute certainty, know that the other electron's spin is down, and vice versa. Their states are perfectly anti-correlated. Now here is the spooky part. Let's say we separate these two entangled electrons, sending one to the other side of the room or even to the other side of the galaxy. The moment we measure the spin of the electron here on Earth and find it to be up, the electron on the other side of the galaxy instantly collapses its wave function and assumes the definite state of spin down. This communication, this influence, appears to happen faster than the speed of light, seemingly violating one of the most fundamental principles of Einstein's theory of relativity. Einstein believed this was a sign that quantum mechanics was incomplete, that there must be some hidden variables or predetermined information that the particles carried with them. However, numerous experiments have confirmed that this is not the case. The connection is real and it is non-local. The philosophical implications of entanglement are staggering. It suggests that our common-sense notion of reality being made up of separate, independent objects is fundamentally flawed. At its deepest level, the universe may not be a collection of individual parts, but a single, indivisible, and interconnected whole. The separation we perceive in space might be an illusion. The two entangled particles are not two things communicating across a distance. In a quantum sense, they remain one thing, regardless of their spatial separation. This has led some to speculate that the entire universe, born from a single point in the Big Bang, might still be, in some profound sense, a single, entangled quantum system. For our contemplation tonight, consider this radical interconnectedness. What if the feeling of being a separate, isolated self is the ultimate illusion? What if, at a level deeper than we can perceive, you are fundamentally and inextricably connected to everything else in the universe, a part of a single, great, and mysterious quantum whole? Number 17. The end of certainty. Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. We now confront a principle that strikes at the very heart of our ability to know reality. This is Werner Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, a cornerstone of quantum mechanics that establishes a fundamental and inescapable limit to our knowledge. In the classical world we are used to, we believe that with precise enough instruments, we can know everything about an object simultaneously. We can know a car's exact position and its exact momentum, its mass times its velocity, at the same time. The more accurately we measure, the more we know. The uncertainty principle, however, states that this is not true at the quantum level. It establishes that there are certain pairs of physical properties, like a particle's position and its momentum, that are fundamentally linked in such a way that they cannot both be known with perfect accuracy at the same time. The more precisely you measure the position of a particle, like an electron, the less precisely you can know its momentum. And conversely, the more precisely you measure its momentum, the less precisely you can know its position. This is not a limitation of our measuring devices or our experimental skill. It is not a problem that can be solved with better technology. It is a fundamental, built-in property of the universe itself. The very nature of a particle is such that it does not possess a definite position and a definite momentum simultaneously. The uncertainty is inherent to its being. To visualize why, we can think back to the wave-particle duality. A particle with a very precise momentum corresponds to a perfect, infinitely long wave with a single, clear wavelength. But an infinite wave is, by definition, spread out over all of space, so its position is completely uncertain. To locate the particle, you need to combine many different waves of different wavelengths. This superposition of waves creates a wave packet that is more localized in space, giving you a better idea of its position. However, by adding many different wavelengths, you have now made its momentum, which is related to wavelength, inherently uncertain. You have traded certainty in momentum for certainty in position. You can never have both at once. The philosophical implications of this principle are profound. It marks the definitive end of the classical dream of a deterministic universe, a clockwork universe, where if we knew the position and momentum of every particle, we could predict the future with perfect accuracy. The uncertainty principle shows us that the universe, at its most fundamental level, has a built-in, irreducible fuzziness. There is an inherent limit to what we can know. Reality is not a sharp, high-resolution photograph. It is a probabilistic, slightly blurred painting. This forces upon us a deep sense of humility. It tells us that our quest for absolute certainty is destined to fail, not because we are not clever enough, but because the universe itself does not operate on a principle of absolute certainty. For our contemplation, embrace this fundamental uncertainty. What if the universe is not a perfectly written book for us to read, but a poem with multiple valid interpretations? What if its beauty lies not in its perfect predictability, but in its inherent, mysterious, and endless potential?
Number 18. The Quantum Tunnel. Particles in Impossible Places. Our journey into the quantum enigma now leads us to a phenomenon that directly defies all our classical common-sense intuition about barriers and boundaries. This is the bizarre and experimentally verified effect of quantum tunneling. In our everyday macroscopic world, if you throw a ball at a solid wall, it will bounce back. It does not have enough energy to break through the wall, and so it cannot appear on the other side. The wall is an absolute barrier. Our reality is governed by these clear and reliable boundaries. But in the quantum realm, the rules are very different. A quantum particle, like an electron, when faced with an energy barrier it does not have enough energy to overcome, still has a small but non-zero probability of simply appearing on the other side. It's as if the particle has tunneled through a solid wall that should have been impenetrable. This strange behavior is a direct consequence of the wave-like nature of particles and the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Because a particle's position is not a definite point, but a wave of probability, this wave does not abruptly stop at the barrier. Instead, its amplitude decreases exponentially as it enters the barrier, but a tiny, faint part of the wave can actually extend all the way through to the other side. This means there is a small but real probability that when you go to measure the particle, you will find it on the side of the wall it should not have been able to reach. It did not break through the barrier. Its probabilistic nature allowed it to exist on both sides, and it simply materialized on the far side. This is not just a theoretical curiosity. Quantum tunneling is a real and essential process that makes much of our universe, and even our technology, possible. The fusion reactions that power our sun and all the stars in the sky rely on quantum tunneling. The nuclei of hydrogen atoms do not have enough energy on their own to overcome the immense electrostatic repulsion between them, but they can tunnel through this energy barrier to get close enough to fuse, releasing vast amounts of energy. Modern electronics, from transistors to flash memory drives, also depend on the controlled tunneling of electrons through insulating barriers. The strange, impossible behavior of the quantum world is the very foundation of our modern technological reality. The philosophical implications are deeply unsettling and wonderful. It suggests that the boundaries we perceive in the world are not as absolute as they seem. It implies that reality is not a world of hard, definite separations, but one of probabilities and potentials, where impossible is not always a certainty. For our contemplation tonight, consider the barriers in your own life, the obstacles that seem insurmountable, the walls that seem too high. Quantum tunneling teaches us on a fundamental level that the universe is a place where boundaries can be transcended in the most unexpected ways. What if the rigid separations we perceive between ourselves and others, between our present and our desired future, are not as solid as they appear? What if reality at its core is more permeable, more mysterious, and more full of potential than our classical minds can ever fully grasp?
Number 19. The fabric of space-time. Is it a stage or an actor? We now ascend from the microscopic quantum realm to the vast cosmic scale of the universe to contemplate the very fabric of reality itself, space-time. For most of human history, and in the classical physics of Isaac Newton, space and time were seen as separate, absolute, and passive entities. Space was a fixed three-dimensional grid, an empty stage upon which the events of the universe unfolded. Time was a universal, relentless clock, ticking at the same rate for everyone, everywhere. They were the unchanging background, the absolute framework within which matter and energy moved and interacted. But in the early 20th century, Albert Einstein's theory of general relativity completely shattered this view, presenting a new and radically different picture of reality. According to Einstein, space and time are not separate, nor are they a passive backdrop. They are inextricably interwoven into a single, dynamic, four-dimensional continuum known as spacetime. And this fabric of spacetime is not a rigid, empty stage. It is an active participant in the cosmic drama. The presence of mass and energy warps and curves this fabric. Imagine a heavy bowling ball placed on a stretched rubber sheet. The ball creates a deep depression in the sheet. This is what massive objects, like stars and planets, do to spacetime. They bend it, they curve it, they distort it. And what we perceive as the force of gravity is nothing more than objects following the straightest possible path through this curved spacetime. The Earth is not being pulled by the sun through some mysterious force acting across empty space. Instead, the sun's immense mass has created a deep well in the fabric of spacetime, and the Earth is simply rolling along the edge of this well, following a geodesic, or the shortest path in a curved geometry. Gravity is not a force, it is the geometry of the universe itself. This means the very stage upon which reality unfolds is an active, malleable player, constantly being shaped by the actors upon it, and in turn, dictating how those actors can move. The implications of this are profound. It means that time itself is not absolute.
time runs slower in stronger gravitational fields, a phenomenon known as gravitational time dilation, which has been experimentally verified. A clock at sea level will tick slightly slower than a clock on a mountaintop. It also means that space itself can be stretched, compressed, and can ripple like the surface of a pond. These ripples, known as gravitational waves, are created by cataclysmic cosmic events like the collision of two black holes, and we have now built detectors sensitive enough to observe them. For our contemplation tonight, try to shed the intuition of an empty, passive space. Imagine the universe not as objects moving through a void, but as a dynamic, interactive fabric. What if the very ground of your being, the space-time you inhabit, is not a static container, but a living, breathing, and ever-changing entity, a cosmic ocean whose currents guide your every move?
Number 20. The Cosmic Ghosts. The Mystery of Dark Matter and Dark Energy. Our journey into the nature of reality now brings us face to face with a humbling and profound mystery, a discovery that has revealed the startling extent of our own cosmic ignorance. When we look up at the night sky, we see stars, galaxies, nebulas, a universe of light and matter. We believed for a very long time that this was the universe. But in the late 20th century, astronomers began to notice that something was deeply wrong. Galaxies were spinning faster than they should. Based on the amount of visible matter they contained, they should have flown apart. Clusters of galaxies were held together by a gravitational force far greater than could be accounted for by the galaxies we could see. There had to be something else there, something massive, yet completely invisible. This mysterious, unseen substance was given a name: dark matter. Dark matter is a ghost in the cosmic machine. It does not emit, reflect, or interact with light or any other form of electromagnetic radiation, which is why we cannot see it directly. We only know it exists because of its powerful gravitational effects on the matter we can see. It acts as a vast invisible scaffolding upon which the visible structures of the universe, like galaxies, are built. Scientists have proposed various candidates for what dark matter could be, from undiscovered subatomic particles to primordial black holes, but its true nature remains one of the greatest unsolved mysteries in all of science. But the mystery deepens. In the late 1990s, astronomers studying distant supernovae made an even more shocking discovery. They expected to find that the expansion of the universe, which began with the Big Bang, was slowing down due to the gravitational pull of all the matter within it. Instead, they found the exact opposite. The expansion of the universe is accelerating. It is speeding up, with galaxies flying away from each other at an ever-increasing rate. To explain this, physicists have been forced to propose the existence of yet another mysterious entity: dark energy. Dark energy is thought to be a property of space itself, a kind of anti-gravitational force that is pushing the universe apart. When we add up all the matter and energy in the universe based on our best cosmological models, the results are staggering. The ordinary matter that makes up everything we have ever seen, touched, or measured, every star, every planet, every human being, accounts for less than 5% of the total content of the universe. About 27% is dark matter, the invisible glue holding it all together, and a colossal 68% is dark energy, the mysterious force driving it all apart. This means that 95% of reality is composed of substances that we cannot see and do not understand. The reality we perceive is just the tip of a vast, dark cosmic iceberg. For our contemplation, let this profound humility wash over you. Consider that the universe you know, the one of light and stars, is just a tiny, fragile foam on the surface of a deep, dark, and utterly mysterious ocean. What other fundamental truths about reality might we be completely blind to?
Number 21. The Frozen River, the Block Universe, and the Illusion of Time. We now delve into a concept that fundamentally challenges our most basic and intuitive perception of reality. A concept that emerges from the strange convergence of ancient philosophy and the frontiers of modern physics. This is the idea that time, as we experience it, is an illusion. Our everyday, common-sense experience tells us that time flows inexorably in a single linear direction, like a river. The past is gone forever, a collection of memories. The future is yet to come, a realm of possibilities. And we exist only in the fleeting, razor-thin moment of the present now. This intuitive view is known in philosophy as presentism. However, an alternative and scientifically consistent theory, known as eternalism or the block universe theory, suggests that this experience of a flowing present is a profound and persistent trick of human consciousness. Instead, it posits that all of time, every moment of the past, the present, and the future, exists simultaneously and is equally real. This block universe can be visualized as a four-dimensional loaf of bread. The three familiar spatial dimensions, width, height, and depth, are the dimensions of the loaf itself. The fourth dimension, time, is its length. In this model, every moment in the history of the universe, from the Big Bang to its final eventual heat death, is simply a different slice of this four-dimensional loaf. All of these slices, all of these moments exist at once, just as all the slices of a loaf of bread exist simultaneously. Our consciousness, for reasons we do not fully understand, experiences these slices in a sequential order, creating the powerful illusion of a moving, flowing present moment. It's as if our awareness is a spotlight moving steadily along the length of the loaf, illuminating one slice at a time, creating the narrative of a past, a present, and a future. This perspective, while deeply counterintuitive, is entirely consistent with Albert Einstein's theory of relativity, which treats space and time as a single, unified entity called spacetime. Relativity shows that the present moment is not absolute, but is relative to the observer's motion and gravitational field. This theory has staggering implications for our understanding of life and our perception of reality. If all moments exist eternally and are equally real, then your life is not a fleeting journey that begins at a specific point and ends at another. Your entire existence, every single moment you have ever lived or ever will live, is a permanent and unchangeable pattern etched into the very fabric of space-time. Your birth is not a true beginning, and your death is not a true end. They are simply two coordinates, two different slices in the block universe. The you of your childhood, the you of this present moment of listening, and the you of your old age all exist with equal reality in their respective parts of the block. In this eternalist view, the concept of free will becomes profoundly problematic. If the future already exists, then our choices may not be choices at all, but simply us playing out a pre-written script. The feeling of making a decision is just our consciousness arriving at that particular slice of space-time where the decision has eternally been made. For our contemplation tonight, try to imagine your entire life from beginning to end as a single, complete, and timeless object, a frozen river. What if every moment, even those long past, is still happening in its own slice of time? In this view, our transient existence gains a kind of eternal permanence, but at the cost of its dynamic flow, becoming a beautiful, timeless, and forever existing pattern in the grand, static tapestry of the cosmos.
Number 22. The cosmic hologram. Is our 3D world a 2D projection? Our journey into the strange nature of physical reality now leads us to one of the most mind-bending and speculative ideas to emerge from theoretical physics: the holographic principle. We are accustomed to living in a world of 3 spatial dimensions: length, width, and depth. Our reality feels volumetric, rich, and 3-dimensional. But this principle suggests that this, too, may be a profound illusion. It proposes that all the information contained within a volume of space, including our entire observable universe, can be completely described by the information encoded on its 2-dimensional boundary, much like a 3-dimensional hologram is projected from a flat 2-dimensional film. In this view, the 3D world we experience might be nothing more than a complex holographic projection of a flatter, more fundamental reality. This idea originated from the study of black holes and the laws of thermodynamics. Physicists like Jacob Bekenstein and Stephen Hawking discovered that the amount of information that can be stored within a black hole is not proportional to its volume, as one might expect, but to the surface area of its event horizon, its 2-dimensional boundary. This was a startling discovery, suggesting that 3-dimensional information could be fully encoded on a 2-dimensional surface. The holographic principle generalizes this idea to the entire universe. It posits that there is a fundamental limit to the information density of any region of space, and that this limit is defined by its surface area, not its volume. If this principle is correct, it means that the world we perceive as 3-dimensional is, in a sense, redundant. The true fundamental reality might be a flat, 2-dimensional information field located at the farthest conceivable boundary of our cosmos. Everything we see and experience, ourselves, our planet, distant galaxies, would be a projection from this cosmic hard drive. This doesn't mean our world isn't real in an experiential sense. A holographic image is real in that you can see it and interact with its light, but it is not fundamental. Its source lies elsewhere. Our seemingly solid and volumetric reality would be like the characters and scenery in a highly advanced virtual reality game, projected for us from a distant, flat screen. This radical reframing of reality, while still a theoretical concept, has gained significant traction and has been shown to be mathematically consistent in certain theoretical models of the universe. It offers potential solutions to deep problems in physics, such as the reconciliation of general relativity and quantum mechanics. For our contemplation tonight, let this strange idea wash over you. Imagine the solid 3-dimensional world around you dissolving into a shimmering, complex projection of light and information. What if you, in your entirety, are a holographic image, your consciousness, a complex pattern projected from the edge of the universe? In this view, the fabric of reality becomes something akin to a grand cosmic illusion, a beautiful and intricate shadow play whose true source lies far beyond the world we can see or touch.
Number 23. The laws of physics. Are they discovered or invented? We have been exploring the strange and often counterintuitive nature of the reality described by the laws of physics. But now, we must turn our contemplative gaze upon the laws themselves.
We tend to think of the laws of physics, gravity, electromagnetism, the principles of thermodynamics, as fundamental, objective, and eternal truths of the universe. We see them as pre-existing rules that we, as scientists and thinkers, have painstakingly discovered. We believe we are slowly uncovering a universal mathematical blueprint that has governed the cosmos since the beginning of time. But what if this view is also a part of the grand illusion? What if the laws of physics are not discovered, but are, in a profound sense, invented? This philosophical position, known as anti-realism or instrumentalism, challenges our most basic assumptions about science. It suggests that scientific theories and physical laws are not descriptions of an independent, objective reality. Instead, they are human creations, useful tools or conceptual models that we have invented to help us organize our experiences, make accurate predictions, and manipulate the world around us. In this view, to ask if a law like E equals mc squared is true in some absolute cosmic sense is a meaningless question. The only meaningful question is whether it is useful. Does it work? Does it allow us to build nuclear reactors and predict the behavior of stars? If it does, then it is a good model, a successful instrument. Consider the history of science. Newton's law of gravity was considered an absolute truth for centuries. It worked perfectly for predicting the orbits of planets and the fall of an apple. But it was eventually superseded by Einstein's theory of general relativity, which provided a more accurate and comprehensive model, especially in strong gravitational fields. An instrumentalist would argue that neither theory is a truer description of reality. They are simply two different models, with Einstein's being more useful across a wider range of phenomena. The laws of physics in this view are not converging on a final, ultimate truth. They are simply evolving, becoming more powerful and more sophisticated tools for prediction and control. This perspective forces us to confront the role of the human mind in shaping our understanding of the universe. Our brains, with their innate capacity for mathematical reasoning and pattern recognition, may be predisposed to seeing the universe in terms of elegant, law-like structures. We impose this mathematical order onto the world, and then we mistake our own imposed structure for a feature of the world itself. The universe may not be inherently mathematical. It may simply be that mathematics is the language our particular kind of consciousness uses to make sense of it. For our contemplation, let go of the idea of immutable, eternal laws. Imagine instead that the scientific truths we hold so dear are human stories, powerful and incredibly useful narratives we tell ourselves about the cosmos. What does it mean for our place in the universe if the very laws that govern it are not rigid rules we must obey, but flexible models we have creatively designed?
Number 24. The problem of measurement in quantum mechanics. As we conclude our second act, a deep dive into the strange reality described by physics, we must confront the central, unresolved paradox that lies at its very heart. This is the measurement problem in quantum mechanics. It is the deep and perplexing question of how and why the act of measurement causes a quantum system to abandon its strange probabilistic wave-like behavior and collapse into a single, definite, classical reality. As we have explored, a particle like an electron can exist in a superposition of multiple states at once. It is only when we measure it that it chooses one definite state. The measurement problem is the mystery of this transition from a world of quantum potential to a world of classical actuality. The problem can be framed with a simple question: what counts as a measurement?
At what point does the universe decide to stop being a cloud of possibilities and start being a world of definite things? The Copenhagen interpretation, one of the earliest and most standard views, simply posits that measurement causes collapse, without fully explaining the mechanism. It creates a strange and arbitrary dividing line between the microscopic quantum world, which follows its own bizarre rules, and the macroscopic classical world of our experience, which seems to follow a different set of rules. But where is this line? Is a Geiger counter a quantum object or a classical one? What about a virus or a dust mote? There is no clear answer. This has led to a host of alternative interpretations, each trying to solve the puzzle in its own unique way. The many worlds interpretation, as we have discussed, solves the problem by denying the collapse altogether. It claims the universe simply branches, with every possible outcome becoming real in a parallel world. Pilot wave theories, like the one proposed by David Bohm, suggest that there are hidden variables at play. The particles always have a definite position, and the wave simply guides them, meaning there is no collapse because there was never a superposition of states to begin with. Other theories, like quantum Darwinism, propose that the measurement is the process of the environment itself selecting for and making redundant copies of the information about a particle's state, making it appear classical to us. The very existence of so many competing interpretations highlights the fact that after a century of quantum mechanics, we still do not fully understand the nature of reality's transition from potential to actuality. The measurement problem is the point where our most successful scientific theory seems to break down, pointing towards a deeper, more mysterious layer of reality that we have not yet grasped. It is the boundary where physics meets philosophy. For our contemplation tonight, let the weight of this uncertainty settle in. Consider a world that exists in a constant state of shimmering potential. What is the nature of the force, the interaction, or the principle that crystallizes this potential into the solid, definite reality you experience? The measurement problem is a profound and humbling reminder that despite all our knowledge, we are still standing at the edge of a great mystery, peering into the very process of creation itself.
Number 25. The Dream Argument. Can you prove you are awake right now? We now entered the third act of our journey, moving from the paradoxes of the physical world to the deepest mysteries of the mind and consciousness. We begin with a philosophical challenge that is as ancient as it is unsettling: the dream argument. Ponder this simple yet profound question. Can you, with absolute indubitable certainty, prove that you are not dreaming right now? This is not a trivial question. It is a powerful thought experiment that has been used by philosophers from the ancient Chinese sage Zhuangzi to the French rationalist René Descartes to undermine our most fundamental certainty, the belief in the reality of our own waking experience. Consider the nature of your dreams. When you are inside a dream, it often feels completely and utterly real. You experience sights, sounds, emotions, and a coherent narrative. You do not, typically, question the reality of the dream while you are in it. It is only upon waking that you realize it was all an elaborate fabrication of your own mind. The dream argument takes this common experience and pushes it to its logical extreme. If you have been deceived by your experiences in the past, believing a dream to be real, how can you be certain that you are not being deceived right now? What foolproof test can you perform to distinguish this present moment from a particularly vivid and logical dream? Descartes, in his Meditations, wrestled with this problem. He noted that there are no certain indications by which we may clearly distinguish wakefulness from sleep. Any test you could propose, pinching yourself, reading a line of text twice, looking at a clock, could, in theory, simply be another element of the dream itself. You could dream that you are pinching yourself and dream that you feel the pain. You could dream that you are performing a reality check and dream that you pass it. The dream can always incorporate your attempts to disprove it, creating a seamless and self-contained illusion. This argument throws into radical doubt the reliability of all our sensory experiences. If we cannot be certain that we are awake, then we cannot be certain that the external world we perceive is real. The entire universe, our bodies, and the people we interact with could all be figments of a powerful and long-lasting dream. While most of us do not seriously believe we are dreaming, the argument serves a powerful philosophical purpose. It forces us to recognize that our belief in an external waking reality is just that, a belief. It is a deeply held assumption, not a logically proven certainty. It shatters our naive realism and opens the door to a deeper questioning of the relationship between our minds and the world. For our contemplation tonight, allow yourself to entertain this radical doubt. Look at the world around you, feel the sensations of your body, and ask yourself with genuine curiosity, what if this is all a dream? What would that mean for the nature of reality, and for the nature of the you who is doing the dreaming?
Number 26. The simulation code. Are we living inside a computer program? Building upon the philosophical doubt of the dream argument, we now explore its modern, technological successor, the simulation hypothesis. This is the idea that our entire universe, including our sense of self and consciousness, is not a dream of our own making, but an incredibly advanced and sophisticated computer simulation, created by a far more advanced civilization in a base reality. This concept, once confined to science fiction, has entered the mainstream of philosophical and even scientific debate, offering a chillingly plausible framework for understanding the nature of our existence. We may not be dreamers, but we may be characters in a highly advanced video game, living out our lives within a cosmic hard drive. The logical argument for this hypothesis, most famously articulated by philosopher Nick Bostrom, is based on a few reasonable assumptions. First, it assumes that consciousness is not tied to a biological brain, but can, in principle, be emulated on a sufficiently powerful computer. Second, it assumes that a technologically mature, post-human civilization would have access to immense computational power. And third, it assumes that such a civilization might have reasons to run ancestor simulations, detailed simulations of their evolutionary or historical past. If these assumptions are true, then such a civilization would likely run billions upon billions of these simulations. If that is the case, then from a purely statistical standpoint, the number of simulated consciousnesses would vastly outnumber the number of original biological consciousnesses. Therefore, it is statistically far more probable that we are one of the simulated beings, rather than the original ones. This idea is bolstered by certain peculiar features of our own universe. The laws of physics are fundamentally mathematical, like the code of a computer program. Reality seems to be pixelated at the smallest scales, the Planck length, which could be seen as the resolution limit of the simulation's grid. The speed of light could be the ultimate processing speed of the cosmic computer.
And the strangeness of quantum mechanics, where reality seems to only become definite upon observation, could be interpreted as a clever optimization strategy. The simulation only renders the world in full detail when a conscious player character is looking, saving computational resources. If we are living in a simulation, the implications are staggering. It would mean that our reality is not fundamental, but constructed. Our physical laws are not immutable truths of the cosmos, but are simply the rules of the program we inhabit, and could, in theory, be altered or patched by the simulators. The purpose of our existence would be a complete mystery, perhaps a scientific experiment, a form of entertainment, or something entirely beyond our comprehension. For our contemplation tonight, let this strange and modern idea settle in. Look at the world around you, not as a collection of matter and energy, but as a stream of perfectly rendered data. What if your thoughts and feelings are not your own, but are part of a sophisticated script? The simulation hypothesis is the ultimate conspiracy theory, one in which the entire universe is the conspiracy, and we are all unwitting participants in a grand, unknowable, digital illusion.
Number 27. The Great Programmer. If it's a simulation, who runs it? Having seriously contemplated the possibility that our reality is a sophisticated computer simulation, a natural and deeply unsettling question immediately follows. If our world is a program, who wrote the code? If we are characters in a cosmic game, who are the players? This question pushes us beyond the technicalities of the simulation hypothesis and into the realm of profound metaphysical and theological speculation. The identity and motives of these hypothetical simulators or programmers become the new ultimate mystery, a technological reframing of the age-old question of God. Let's explore the possibilities. One scenario is that our simulators are our own distant post-human descendants. They might be running an ancestor simulation for historical research, to understand their own origins. In this case, they would be much like us, only vastly more intelligent and technologically advanced. They might be observing us with the detached curiosity of a historian or a sociologist studying a past culture. Their motives would be understandable, perhaps even benevolent in a scientific sense. However, this raises its own dizzying paradox. What if our simulators are themselves living in a simulation, created by an even more advanced civilization? This could lead to an infinite regress, a vast hierarchy of simulations nested within simulations, with no clear base reality at the top. Another, more unsettling possibility is that our reality was created for a purpose we would find trivial or even horrifying. We could be part of a vast entertainment product for a civilization so advanced that the lives and sufferings of simulated beings are of no more consequence than the pixels on a screen are to us. Or perhaps we are a sandbox environment, a place for our creators to test out complex social or physical theories, with our entire civilization being a disposable experiment, to be terminated once the required data has been gathered. In this view, the simulators would not be gods to be worshipped, but could be seen as indifferent or even cruel cosmic puppet masters. A third possibility veers closer to traditional religious thought. What if the creator of the simulation is a single omnipotent and omniscient being, a programmer so advanced that they are, for all intents and purposes, a god? This being could have created our simulated universe for reasons of its own, perhaps to explore different forms of consciousness, to experience existence through countless individual perspectives, or simply as an act of pure, divine creation. This doesn't solve the problem of meaning, but it reframes it in a way that aligns with many traditional theological traditions. The laws of physics would be the code of this divine programmer,
And what we call miracles might simply be moments where the programmer directly intervenes in the simulation, altering its parameters. For our contemplation, consider the implications of being a created entity. Does it matter who or what our creator is? Does the possibility of a great programmer change how you perceive your own free will, your purpose, and the ultimate meaning of your simulated life? The question of the simulator is the final, modern frontier of our search for a creator.
Number 28. The Idealist's Universe. The theory that reality is mental. We now explore a philosophical perspective that is, in many ways, the most direct and elegant challenge to our common-sense materialism. This is the philosophy of idealism. While materialism posits that matter is the fundamental reality, and consciousness is an emergent property of it, idealism flips this entirely on its head. It proposes that consciousness, or mind, is the fundamental reality of the universe, and the physical world we perceive is either a manifestation, a projection, or a form of this universal mind. In this view, reality is not made of tiny mindless particles. It is made of thought, of experience, of consciousness itself. The universe is not a great machine. It is a great thought. There are different forms of idealism. Subjective idealism, most famously associated with the philosopher George Berkeley, argues that to be is to be perceived. An object, like a tree, only exists for as long as it is being perceived by a mind. If no one is there to see, hear, or touch the tree, it simply ceases to exist. Reality is a collection of private, mind-dependent experiences. A more common form, however, is objective idealism, which posits the existence of a single universal consciousness, often equated with God or a cosmic mind, that is constantly perceiving and thereby sustaining all reality. Our individual minds are like small eddies in this great universal stream of consciousness. We are not creating our own separate realities, but are participating in a shared cosmic dream. This perspective offers a powerful solution to some of the deepest problems in philosophy and science. The hard problem of consciousness, why and how physical brain processes give rise to subjective experience, is dissolved. If consciousness is fundamental, then we don't need to explain how it arises from matter. Instead, we need to explain how the illusion of matter arises from consciousness. Similarly, the strangeness of quantum mechanics, particularly the observer effect, becomes much more intuitive. If reality is fundamentally mental, then it makes perfect sense that the act of observation, an act of mind, would play a crucial role in shaping the physical world. The universe is not just being observed by mind. It is mind. This is a profound and beautiful re-enchantment of the universe. It transforms the cold, empty void of materialism into a living, thinking, and conscious cosmos. It suggests that our own consciousness is not an accidental fluke, but a direct participation in the fundamental nature of reality. For our contemplation tonight, allow yourself to entertain this radical shift in perspective. Imagine that the world around you is not made of hard, separate objects, but is a flowing, interconnected manifestation of a universal consciousness. Look at your own hand and consider that its apparent solidity is a thought form in a cosmic mind. Consider that your own awareness is a small window through which this universal mind is experiencing itself. In the idealist's universe, you are not a stranger looking in. You are the universe itself, looking out.
Number 29. The Conscious Cosmos, Biocentrism and the Role of the Observer. Our exploration of a mind-based reality now leads us to a modern,
scientifically informed theory that places life and consciousness at the absolute center of existence. This is biocentrism, a perspective proposed by scientist Dr. Robert Lanza, which argues that the universe is not a pre-existent entity that happened to give rise to life, but that life and consciousness are the very principles that create the universe and its perceived laws. It is a radical theory that attempts to unify physics, biology, and philosophy by asserting the primacy of the observer. In essence, biocentrism suggests that we are not living in the universe is living in us. The theory is built upon 7 core principles, but its central argument revolves around our understanding of space and time. Biocentrism posits that space and time are not external, objective realities, but are biological constructs, tools of the mind that we use to organize and make sense of sensory information. They are the software of our consciousness. We do not experience the world directly. We experience a spatial-temporal reconstruction of the world created by our brain. Because space and time are not fundamental realities, concepts like infinity, eternity, and a universe existing before consciousness become meaningless constructs. The universe did not exist for billions of years before we arrived. That timeline is simply a story our minds create by looking backwards from our present state of awareness. This perspective offers a unique solution to the fine-tuning problem in physics, the observation that the fundamental constants of the universe seem to be perfectly calibrated to allow for the existence of life. From a biocentric point of view, this is not a coincidence to be explained. The universe must have these properties because it is consciousness itself that is defining them. We could never observe a universe with laws that did not support our existence because we would not be there to observe it. Consciousness collapses the wave function of possibilities into a single consistent reality that is, by definition, compatible with itself. The implications for our understanding of reality are staggering. It means that the objective world out there, independent of any observer, may not exist in any meaningful way. The moon is not there when no one is looking. It exists only as a wave of probabilities until a conscious observer looks up, thereby collapsing that wave into the familiar silver orb in the sky. This is not to say that you personally are creating the entire universe. Rather, it suggests that consciousness is a fundamental property of the cosmos, and that all conscious observers are participating in the co-creation of our shared reality. For our contemplation, try to feel this shift in perspective. Instead of seeing yourself as a tiny, fragile being looking out at a vast, ancient cosmos, imagine that your very act of looking, of being aware, is what is crystallizing the cosmic potential into a tangible reality. In the world of biocentrism, you are not just a spectator, you are a fundamental part of the act of creation itself.
Number 30. The Solipsistic Trap, the Loneliest Theory of Reality. We now venture into what is arguably the most isolating, radical, and conceptually challenging philosophical position imaginable. It is a theory that, if true, would provide the most absolute and total answer to our central question. This is the philosophy of solipsism. The term comes from the Latin solus, meaning alone, and ipse, meaning self. In its purest form, solipsism is the theory that only one's own mind is sure to exist. The solipsist cannot, with absolute certainty, prove the existence of anything outside their own consciousness. The external world with its trees and mountains, other people with their own apparent thoughts and feelings, the entire vast, star-strewn universe, all of these could simply be constructs of one's own mind, an elaborate, seamless, and perfectly convincing dream from which one has never awakened. While it is a notoriously difficult, if not impossible, position to seriously maintain in daily life, as a rigorous thought experiment, it is a powerful and unsettling tool for exploring the true nature of certainty and reality. The
The foundation of solipsism rests on a single, undeniable, and inescapable truth. The only thing you can ever directly experience is your own consciousness. You experience the sensation of sight when you look at a tree. You experience the sensation of sound when you hear a voice. You experience the feeling of love or sadness. But all of these experiences, without exception, occur within the private theater of your own mind. You have no direct, unmediated access to the tree in itself, or to the inner conscious experience of another person. You infer their existence based on the patterns of your sensory data, but that data could, in theory, be entirely self-generated, like the characters in landscapes in a nightly dream. This is the ultimate extension of René Descartes' famous starting point, I think, therefore I am. The solipsist accepts the I think and the I am, but remains fundamentally and radically uncertain about everything else. If one were to adopt this philosophical stance, the implications for the nature of reality are absolute. There is no objective reality to question. Reality is simply the contents of your consciousness. The laws of physics are the rules of your own mental operating system. The history of the universe is a backstory you have written for yourself. The people in your life are characters in your own private play. This places the individual mind at the absolute center of all existence, making it the sole creator and arbiter of everything that is. This is perhaps the loneliest theory imaginable. It traps the self in an inescapable echo chamber of its own creation, with no possibility of genuine connection, shared experience, or external truth. It is a philosophical dead end that most thinkers reject, not because it can be logically disproven, but because to accept it would be to abandon the very possibility of shared knowledge and human relationship. However, as a thought experiment, it serves a crucial purpose. It forces us to confront the limits of our own certainty and the profound mystery of other minds. For our contemplation tonight, let this strange and isolating idea settle in. Look at the world as if it were a projection. What does it feel like to be the sole author of reality? The solipsistic trap is a powerful reminder that our belief in an external world and in the minds of others is a profound and necessary leap of faith, a leap we must take every day to escape the prison of the self.
Number 31. The mathematical blueprint. Is the universe pure mathematics? Our exploration now considers a theory of reality that is as elegant and ordered as it is profoundly strange. This is the mathematical universe hypothesis, most famously proposed by cosmologist Max Tegmark. This theory takes the intimate relationship between physics and mathematics to its ultimate conclusion. We have long known that the universe appears to be describable by mathematical laws. But this hypothesis goes a step further. It posits that the universe is not just described by mathematics. The universe is a mathematical structure. In this view, our physical reality is not made of particles or energy, but is, at its most fundamental level, pure mathematics. The core of the argument is this. If we accept that an external physical reality exists independently of us humans, then it must be describable without using any human-centric language. Concepts like redness or solidity are products of our consciousness. The only language that seems to be able to describe the universe in a completely objective, non-human way is mathematics. Therefore, if there is an objective reality that would exist even if there were no humans, it must be a mathematical structure. And if the universe is a mathematical structure, then every mathematical structure that can exist also exists as its own separate universe.
We just happen to live in the particular one whose structure is complex enough to support self-aware substructures, like ourselves. This is a form of Platonism, but for the entire cosmos. Just as Plato believed in a perfect, abstract realm of forms, this hypothesis suggests that all possible mathematical structures exist in their own abstract, timeless realm. Our physical universe is just one of these structures that has become real to us because we are a part of it. The laws of physics are not arbitrary rules, but are the inherent properties of our specific mathematical structure. For example, the properties of an electron, like its mass and charge, are not random numbers, but are features derived from the mathematical objects that constitute our reality. The implications of this theory are mind-boggling. It suggests the existence of a vast multiverse of all possible mathematical realities, each with its own unique properties and laws. Some would be simple and sterile, while others might be vastly more complex and beautiful than our own. It also reframes our existence. We are not just biological beings, we are self-aware patterns, complex substructures within a grand mathematical object. Our consciousness is the way this mathematical structure experiences and becomes aware of itself. For our contemplation tonight, try to perceive the world around you not as physical stuff, but as the manifestation of pure, elegant mathematical relationships. Consider that the chair you are on, the air you breathe, and the thoughts in your head are all, at their deepest level, expressions of an underlying mathematical truth. In this view, reality is not chaotic or random. It is a realm of profound, timeless, and beautiful order.
Number 32. The Infinite Echo. The Multiverse and its Implications. We now expand on an idea we have touched upon before and explore it in its full, staggering scope, the concept of the multiverse. This is not a single theory, but a collection of different scientific and philosophical ideas that all converge on the same conclusion, that our universe is not the only one. Instead, it is just one bubble in a vast, perhaps infinite cosmic ocean of other universes. This is one of the most profound and humbling ideas in all of science, suggesting that our entire cosmos is but a single grain of sand on an infinite beach. One of the most popular multiverse models comes from the theory of eternal inflation. According to this idea, the Big Bang was not a one-time event. Instead, the process of cosmic inflation, the rapid expansion of space that occurred moments after our Big Bang, is happening eternally. Our universe is just one bubble that pinched off from this eternally inflating background space, and this process is constantly creating other bubbles, other universes, each potentially with its own slightly different physical laws and constants. This creates a quilted multiverse, an endless patchwork of universes extending through space. Another version is the brain multiverse, which emerges from string theory. String theory requires the existence of extra, hidden dimensions of space. In this model, our entire three-dimensional universe might be a brain or a membrane floating in a higher dimensional space, like a sheet of paper in a vast room. And this higher dimensional space could be filled with other parallel brains, other universes, that might be floating just millimeters away from us in another dimension, completely inaccessible and invisible to us. The implications of living in a multiverse are profound. It offers a potential solution to the fine-tuning problem. If there are an infinite number of universes, each with random physical laws, it's not surprising that at least one, by sheer chance, would have the right conditions for life to emerge. We simply find ourselves in one of the universes where we could exist. More unsettlingly, if the number of universes is infinite, then every possible event must occur. In some other universe, a perfect copy of you is making a different decision right now. In another, you are living out your wildest dreams, and in another, you are experiencing your worst fears. Every possibility is not just potential, but actual, somewhere in the vast multiverse. For our contemplation, let the sheer scale of this idea wash over you. Look up at the night sky and imagine that every star you see is just a tiny part of one universe, and that beyond the edge of your perception lie an infinite number of other cosmic tapestries. This perspective can be both terrifying and liberating. It can make our individual lives seem cosmically insignificant, or it can make our unique, specific reality, this one particular version of events that we get to experience, infinitely precious. In an infinite echo chamber of all possibilities, your specific life is a unique and unrepeatable song.
Number 33. The digital ghost, the possibility of uploaded consciousness. Our journey into the nature of reality now brings us to a speculative future that blurs the line between a theory of reality and a technological goal. This is the concept of mind uploading, the idea of transferring a human consciousness from its biological brain to a digital substrate, such as a supercomputer. It is the ultimate transhumanist vision, a way to escape the frailties of the flesh, disease, aging, and death, and achieve a form of digital immortality. It posits that what makes you, is not your physical body, but the intricate pattern of information processed by your brain. If that pattern can be perfectly copied and emulated in a different medium, then you can, in theory, continue to exist. The hypothetical process is a feat of unimaginable technological precision. It would require scanning a living brain at an incredibly high resolution, capturing the exact state of every one of its trillions of connections, or synapses. This is not just a static blueprint, but a dynamic map of the brain's entire information processing architecture. This colossal dataset would then be used to create a whole brain emulation, a software program that runs on a powerful computer and perfectly simulates the original brain's neural activity. In theory, this digital mind would awaken with all the memories, personality traits, and the subjective sense of self of the original person. It would be a digital ghost, a continuation of a life in a new, more durable form. This prospect, however, opens a Pandora's box of profound philosophical problems, chief among them being the problem of personal identity and continuity. Is this digital emulation truly the same person, or is it merely a perfect copy? This is often called the copy problem or the duplication problem. Imagine a non-destructive scanning process where your biological brain continues to exist after the upload. There would now be two separate conscious entities, the original you and the digital copy. The copy would have all your memories and believe it is you, but you, the original, would still be experiencing the world through your biological senses. Which one is the real you? The question becomes even more pointed if the process is destructive or if you die shortly after the upload. Did your consciousness transfer to the machine, or did you simply die, leaving behind a very sophisticated and convincing imposter, a digital ghost haunted by your memories? This dilemma forces us to confront what we truly believe constitutes the self. Is it the pattern of our thoughts and memories, which could theoretically be copied? Or is it the unbroken physical continuity of our biological brain, which cannot? For our contemplation, consider this technological version of the soul. If you had the opportunity to create a digital copy of yourself that would live on after your physical death, would you do it? What is the true essence of your being? The information that defines you, or the physical vessel that experiences the world?
Number 34. The hard problem. Why does consciousness feel like anything at all? We now arrive at what many philosophers and scientists considered to be the single deepest and most difficult mystery in all of science and philosophy. It is the core of our exploration of reality, because it concerns the nature of the entity that is doing the exploring. This is the hard problem of consciousness. The easy problems of consciousness, though incredibly complex, are those that science is gradually solving. They involve understanding how the brain processes information, how it integrates sensory data, how it controls behavior, and how it focuses attention. These are questions about the functions of the brain. The hard problem, however, is of a completely different nature. It is the question of why and how all of this physical brain processing gives rise to subjective, qualitative experience. Why does it feel like something to be you? This is the problem of qualia, the individual, subjective instances of experience. Why does the color red look the way it does, with its unique, indescribable quality of redness? Why does the sound of a cello evoke a feeling of melancholy? Why does the taste of chocolate feel pleasant? The physical processes are well understood. We know that a certain wavelength of light hits our retina, sending electrical signals to our brain. But nothing in that physical description can explain why that process should be accompanied by the rich, private, subjective feeling of seeing red. There is an explanatory gap between the objective, physical world of neurons and electrical signals and the subjective, mental world of feelings, colors, and sounds. This problem is the ultimate challenge to a purely materialist view of reality. If the universe is just mindless matter and energy interacting according to physical laws, why isn't it all just dark inside? Why didn't evolution produce philosophical zombies, beings that could process information, react to stimuli, and behave just like us, but with no inner subjective experience at all? The very existence of our own conscious experience, the fact that it feels like something to be alive, is the most profound and mysterious fact of our existence, and it is the one thing that our current scientific models cannot begin to explain. Some philosophers argue that the hard problem is simply a result of our current ignorance, and that future neuroscience will eventually solve it. Others believe it points to a fundamental flaw in our materialist worldview, suggesting that consciousness must be a fundamental, irreducible property of the universe, just like mass or charge. Still others think that our human brains are simply not evolved to be able to comprehend the solution. It is a mystery that is conceptually beyond our reach. For our contemplation tonight, turn your attention inward to the very fact of your own awareness. Notice the simple, undeniable reality of your own subjective experience. This inner world of feeling and perception is the great mystery. It is the starting point of all our questions, and it may be the final unsolvable enigma of reality itself.
Number 35. The Nature of Nothingness. Exploring the Void. Our journey now takes us to the very edge of conceptual thought, to a destination that is not a place, but an absence. We will attempt to contemplate a reality that is perhaps the most difficult for the human mind to truly grasp, the nature of nothingness. When we consider death from a purely materialist or nihilistic perspective, we are faced with the prospect of not just the end of our conscious experience, but a return to a state of absolute non-existence. But what precisely is this nothingness? Our minds, which are evolved to perceive and process some things, struggle to even imagine it. We can conjure an image of a black, empty void, But even that void is a something. It is a space. It has the property of being black. It has dimensions. True, absolute nothingness is the absence of space, the absence of time, the absence of matter, the absence of energy, the absence of properties, and even the absence of absence itself. It is a concept that our language and our imagination can only point towards, but never fully encompass. Philosophically, this concept of nothingness has been a source of both profound terror and deep fascination. The existentialist fear of non-being, the feeling of angst or dread, is considered a core part of the human condition. It is the anxiety that arises from the recognition of our own mortality and the stark possibility that our consciousness, our entire subjective world, will be utterly and completely annihilated, leaving not even a trace or an echo. This is not the peaceful sleep of death that many hope for, as sleep is still a state of being. This is an absolute cessation that erases the very possibility of any experience whatsoever. It is the state that, presumably, existed for us before our birth, a state we cannot remember because we were not there to experience it or to experience the lack of it. The ancient Greek philosopher Epicurus, whose philosophy was aimed at achieving a life free from turmoil, famously argued that this very nature of nothingness is precisely why we should not fear death. He stated in a simple yet profound logical argument, "Death is nothing to us. For when we exist, death is not yet present, and when death is present, we do not exist." In other words, we, the conscious subjects, will never experience the state of being dead. The very entity that would experience the badness of death is the thing that is annihilated by it. Therefore, to fear the state of non-existence is irrational, as it is a state that is by definition impossible for us to experience. It is the condition that we will never be present for. This elegant, logical argument, while intellectually sound, often does little to quell the deep, primal, emotional fear of oblivion. The human mind is wired for survival, for continued existence, and the thought of its own complete and total end is perhaps its greatest conceptual and emotional challenge. For our contemplation tonight, let us try to sit with this profound idea, not with fear, but with a quiet, detached curiosity. Try to imagine the state before you were born. It was not darkness, it was not silence, for those are experiences. It was simply nothing. What if death is a perfect mirror of that prenatal state, a return to an absolute, experienceless void? Does this idea bring a sense of peace, a profound release from all the burdens and struggles of existence? Or does it, by contrast, highlight the incredible, improbable, and fleeting miracle of being something, right here, right now?
Number 36. The social contract. How we collectively agree on what's real. As we begin the final act of our journey, we shift our focus from the fundamental nature of reality itself to the ways in which we, as social beings, construct a shared reality to live in. We explore the concept of the social contract, an idea central to political and moral philosophy. In its essence, the social contract is a tacit agreement among individuals to cooperate for social benefits, for example, by sacrificing some individual freedom for state protection. But we can expand this idea to our perception of reality itself. We build a consensus reality, a shared set of beliefs, norms, values, and interpretations that allows us to function as a society. This consensus reality is not necessarily the true reality, but it is the one we all agree to inhabit. This socially constructed reality is built upon layers of shared fictions and intersubjective beliefs. Consider the concept of money. A piece of paper with a number on it has no intrinsic value. It is just paper and ink. Yet we all collectively agreed to believe that it has value,
And because of this shared belief, it becomes a powerful reality that can build empires and shape the course of our lives. Similarly, concepts like nations, corporations, laws, and human rights do not exist as physical objects in the world. They are powerful stories that we have all agreed to believe in. They are real because we collectively treat them as real. Historian Yuval Noah Harari argues that this ability to cooperate flexibly in large numbers based on shared myths is what allowed Homo sapiens to dominate the planet. This means that a large part of our daily reality is not dictated by the laws of physics, but by the unwritten rules of our social contract. We navigate a world of meanings, symbols, and values that have been created and are constantly reinforced by our collective agreement. The language we speak, the customs we follow, the morals we uphold, all of these are components of this shared construct. To be a functioning member of a society is to be fluent in its particular version of consensus reality. The implications of this are profound. It suggests that reality is far more malleable and culturally dependent than we often assume. Different societies, at different points in history, have lived in vastly different consensus realities, with different gods, different morals, and different understandings of the world. It also highlights the power we have to change our reality. If our social world is built on stories, then we have the power to tell new, better stories. For our contemplation tonight, consider the rules of the reality you inhabit. How many of them are hard laws of physics, and how many are soft, unwritten rules of social agreement? By recognizing the constructed nature of our shared world, we can begin to see the possibilities for changing it, for renegotiating the contract, and for building a new consensus reality that is more just, more compassionate, and more aligned with our deepest values.
Number 37. The Power of Narrative. The stories we tell ourselves about reality. Building upon the idea of a socially constructed reality, we now turn our focus inward to the most powerful tool we have for shaping our personal experience, the power of narrative. Human beings are, fundamentally, storytelling animals. We do not experience the world as a raw, chaotic stream of data. We instinctively and automatically weave our experiences into coherent narratives with a beginning, a middle, and an end. We create stories about our past to define who we are. We create stories about our present to make sense of what is happening. And we create stories about our future to give us hope and direction. Your sense of self, your identity, is not a fixed entity. It is a story, and you are its primary author. The stories we tell ourselves are not just passive descriptions of our lives, they are active forces that shape our reality. If you consistently tell yourself a story of being a victim, of being unlucky, or of being incapable, your brain will actively filter your perception to find evidence that confirms this narrative. You will notice every setback, interpret ambiguous events negatively, and overlook opportunities for success. Your story becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. Conversely, if you choose to tell yourself a story of being resilient, of being a learner, of being capable of overcoming challenges, your brain will begin to scan the world for evidence to support this new narrative. You will start to see challenges as opportunities, to learn from your mistakes, and to recognize your own strengths. This is the basis of many modern therapeutic approaches, such as narrative therapy. It recognizes that our psychological well-being is deeply tied to the quality of the stories we live by. By becoming aware of our own internal narratives, we can begin to deconstruct the ones that are no longer serving us and consciously author new, more empowering ones. This is not about denying reality or engaging in wishful thinking. It is about recognizing that any given set of external facts can be woven into many different
equally valid stories. We have the power to choose which story we want to live in. This concept gives us immense agency over our own subjective reality. While we may not be able to control the external events of our lives, we have a profound degree of control over the meaning we assign to them. For our contemplation tonight, consider the central narrative of your own life. What is the story you tell yourself about who you are and what your life is about? Is it a story that empowers you, that gives you strength and purpose? Or is it a story that limits you? Recognize that you are not just the main character in your story. You are also the narrator. You hold the pen. And with every thought, you have the power to edit, to revise, and to begin a new chapter, telling a story that is more aligned with the person you truly wish to be.
Number 38. Objective versus subjective reality. Where is the dividing line? Throughout our entire journey, we have been dancing around a fundamental and often blurry distinction: the line between objective reality and subjective reality. Objective reality, as we commonly understand it, is the world out there, independent of our minds. It is the world of matter and energy, governed by the laws of physics. It is the reality that would still exist even if there were no conscious observers to perceive it. It is the territory. Subjective reality, on the other hand, is our internal first-person experience of the world. It is the world of our thoughts, our feelings, our perceptions, our beliefs, and our stories. It is the personal, unique, and private map we create of the territory. For most of our lives, we operate under the assumption that our subjective map is a reasonably accurate representation of the objective territory. But as we have explored, this is a deeply flawed assumption. Our senses are limited, our brains fill in the gaps, our memories are unreliable, and our language shapes what we can think. Our subjective map is not a perfect mirror of reality. It is a highly edited, simplified, and personalized interpretation. This raises a profound philosophical question. Can we ever truly access objective reality? Or are we forever confined to the theater of our own subjective experience? The line between the two can become incredibly porous. Consider the placebo effect. A person's subjective belief that a sugar pill is a powerful medicine can create an objective, measurable physiological change in their body. A subjective state has directly influenced an objective one. Consider social constructs like money or laws. They exist only because of a shared, intersubjective agreement, yet they have a powerful and objective impact on the physical world. Where does the subjective belief end and the objective reality begin? The two seem to be in a constant dynamic interplay, each shaping and influencing the other. This ongoing dialogue between the objective and subjective is perhaps the very essence of our conscious existence. We are constantly taking in information from the objective world and filtering it through our subjective lens. And we are constantly projecting our subjective intentions and beliefs back out into the world, shaping its objective course. For our contemplation tonight, let us become more aware of this subtle dance. As you experience the world, try to distinguish between the two realms. The sensation of the air on your skin is a subjective experience. The air itself, a collection of nitrogen and oxygen molecules, is the proposed objective reality. The story you tell yourself about your day is subjective. The sequence of events that occurred is objective. By learning to see the distinction, we can gain a greater sense of clarity. We can learn to hold our subjective beliefs and perceptions more lightly, recognizing them as our personal map, while cultivating a deep sense of humility and wonder for the vast,
unknowable objective territory that lies forever beyond our direct grasp.
Number 39. The search for truth. Is it found or is it created? As we navigate the blurry line between objective and subjective reality, we are confronted with another fundamental question that has occupied philosophers for centuries. What is the nature of truth? Is truth something that we find, an objective external reality that we discover and conform to? Or is truth something that we create, a product of our minds, our language, and our cultural agreements? This is the core of the debate between two major theories of truth, the correspondence theory and the coherence theory. The correspondence theory is the common sense view. It states that a belief or a statement is true if it accurately corresponds to an independent, objective reality. The statement, "There is a tree outside my window," is true if and only if there is an actual physical tree existing outside my window. Truth in this view is about getting our mental maps to accurately reflect the external territory. This is the guiding principle of science and our everyday interactions with the world. We seek evidence, we test hypotheses, and we try to build a model of reality that corresponds as closely as possible to the way things really are. The coherence theory, on the other hand, offers a different perspective. It suggests that the truth of a belief is not determined by its correspondence to an external world, but by its consistency and logical coherence with a larger system of beliefs. A statement is considered true if it fits neatly within our existing web of knowledge without creating contradictions. For example, in a system of mathematics, a theorem is true not because it corresponds to a physical object, but because it can be logically derived from the foundational axioms of that system. This view becomes particularly powerful when we consider realities that are not physical, such as moral truths or social constructs. The truth of a statement like "all people deserve respect" is not found in the physical world, but in its coherence with a broader ethical framework of justice, empathy, and human dignity. These two views are not necessarily mutually exclusive, but they highlight a deep tension in our search for understanding. Are we passive discoverers of a pre-existing truth, or are we active creators of it? The reality is likely a complex interplay of both. We are constrained by an objective world that pushes back against our beliefs. We cannot simply believe there is no gravity. But we also have an immense capacity to create truths through our shared narratives, our social agreements, and our personal interpretations. We live in a world that is both found and made. For our contemplation tonight, consider your own most deeply held truths. Are they truths of correspondence, based on external evidence, or are they truths of coherence, based on how well they fit within your system of values and beliefs? By understanding the different ways in which we construct and validate truth, we can approach our own beliefs and the beliefs of others with greater nuance, humility, and wisdom. Number 40. The limits of our logic. Gödel's Incompleteness theorems. Our journey into the nature of truth and reality now leads us to confront the limits of the very tool we use to build our understanding: logic. For centuries, mathematicians and philosophers dreamed of creating a perfect, complete, and consistent formal system, a theory of everything for mathematics, from which all true statements could be proven from a finite set of axioms. This was the grand ambition of thinkers like David Hilbert. They believed that reality, at its core, was rational, and that human logic was capable of eventually uncovering all of its truths. But in 1931, a young Austrian logician named Kurt Gödel published two theorems that shattered this dream forever. Gödel's incompleteness theorems are among the most profound and significant intellectual achievements of the 20th century. In essence, they proved two startling things about any formal system of logic and mathematics that is complex enough to include basic arithmetic. The first theorem states that within any such system, there will always be statements that are true, but that cannot be proven to be true using the rules of that system. These are undecidable statements. This means that no matter how many axioms you start with, there will always be mathematical truths that lie forever beyond the reach of your logical proof. The system is inherently and forever incomplete. The second theorem is even more unsettling. It states that no such formal system can prove its own consistency. To prove that a system is free from contradictions, you would need to use a larger, more powerful system. But that larger system would also be unable to prove its own consistency, and so on, leading to an infinite regress. This means that we can never be absolutely certain that the very foundations of our mathematics, the bedrock of our science and technology, are free from hidden contradictions. We operate on a faith in its consistency that can never be formally proven. The philosophical implications of Gödel's work are immense. They demonstrate that there are fundamental, inherent limits to what rational thought and logical systems can achieve. Truth is a larger category than proof. There will always be more truths in the universe than our logical systems can ever capture. This does not mean that logic is useless. It is an incredibly powerful tool. But it does mean that reality is not a closed, finite system that can be fully encapsulated by human reason. It suggests that reality is and will always be more complex, more mysterious, and more open-ended than any formal system we can devise. For our contemplation tonight, let this idea of inherent incompleteness bring a sense of humility. It reminds us that our search for knowledge is an infinite journey, not one with a final destination. There will always be new horizons of truth to explore, some of which may lie beyond the reach of our current logic, accessible only through intuition, creativity, and a leap of intellectual faith.
Number 41. The theory of everything. Is a final answer possible? Building on the profound limits revealed by Gödel's theorems, we now turn our contemplative gaze to the grandest ambition of modern physics, the search for a theory of everything. This is the quest for a single, all-encompassing, coherent theoretical framework that can fully explain and link together all the physical aspects of the universe. It is the dream of finding a master equation, perhaps no more than an inch long, from which all the known laws of nature could be derived. It would unify the two great pillars of modern physics: general relativity, which describes the universe on the grandest cosmic scales of stars and galaxies, and quantum mechanics, which describes the universe on the smallest subatomic scales. A theory of everything would, in principle, explain every physical phenomenon, from the Big Bang to the fate of black holes. The leading contender in this search has, for decades, been string theory. String theory proposes that the fundamental constituents of reality are not point-like particles, but tiny, one-dimensional, vibrating strings of energy. The different ways these strings vibrate correspond to the different particles we observe, such as electrons and photons. In this elegant picture, the entire universe is a grand cosmic symphony, and the laws of nature are the rules of harmony that govern how these strings can vibrate and interact. To work mathematically, however, string theory requires the existence of extra, hidden dimensions of space, perhaps as many as 10 or 11 in total. The quest for a theory of everything is a testament to our deep-seated human desire for unity,
order, and complete understanding. It is driven by the belief that the universe is ultimately rational and intelligible, and that we possess the capacity to comprehend its final, most fundamental blueprint. But is this quest destined for success? Or is it a modern-day search for the Holy Grail, a noble but ultimately unattainable goal? Gödel's incompleteness theorems cast a long shadow over this ambition. If any sufficiently complex mathematical system is inherently incomplete, and if our physical reality is described by such a system, then it may be that a final, complete, and provably consistent theory of everything is a logical impossibility. Even if such a theory were found, would it truly be the end of physics, or the final answer? It would describe the how of the universe in exquisite detail, but it might remain silent on the profound why questions. Why do these particular laws exist instead of others? Why is there a universe at all? And, most importantly, how does a universe of vibrating strings and mathematical equations give rise to subjective, conscious experience? The theory of everything might explain the mechanics of the brain, but it would not solve the hard problem of consciousness. For our contemplation, consider this grand scientific quest. Is the search for a final answer a noble pursuit that drives us forward, or is it a beautiful illusion? Perhaps the ultimate reality is not a single final equation to be solved, but an infinite, unfolding mystery to be endlessly explored.
Number 42. The power of perspective. How to actively shape your personal reality. After journeying through the deepest and most abstract questions about the nature of objective reality, our final act turns inward. We now focus on a concept that is both profoundly philosophical and intensely practical. If our experience of reality is a construction, a story, a subjective map, then we possess a remarkable power, the power of perspective. This is the ability to consciously and deliberately choose the lens through which we view the events of our lives. While we may not be able to control the external territory, we have a significant degree of agency over how we choose to draw our internal map. And this choice, this shift in perspective, can fundamentally transform our subjective experience of reality. This is a central teaching of many ancient wisdom traditions. The Stoics, for example, did not believe in changing the world, but in changing their judgments about the world. They argued that it is not events themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about those events. An external event, losing a job, facing a criticism, is in itself neutral. It is our internal interpretation, our perspective, that labels it as a disaster or a catastrophe, and thereby creates our suffering. By consciously choosing a different perspective, by reframing the event as an opportunity for growth or a test of our resilience, we can change our emotional and psychological reality, even when the external facts remain the same. This is not about denying negative feelings or engaging in naive positive thinking. It is about recognizing the space between a stimulus and our response, and understanding that within that space lies our freedom to choose. It is the difference between reacting automatically based on old habits and responding consciously from a place of wisdom and intention. This power of perspective allows us to find meaning in suffering, to discover strength in adversity, and to cultivate gratitude even in difficult circumstances. It is the art of becoming the master of our own inner world, regardless of the chaos that may be unfolding in the outer world. This concept is also a cornerstone of modern cognitive psychology. Therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy are built on the principle that by identifying, challenging, and changing our distorted thought patterns and core beliefs, we can fundamentally alter our emotional state and our experience of life. We can learn to reframe our personal reality. For our contemplation tonight, consider a challenge you are currently facing in your life. Observe the story you're telling yourself about it, the perspective you have adopted. Now, as a thought experiment, try on a different perspective. What would this situation look like from a place of courage, of curiosity, of compassion? You may not be able to change the external facts, but you always retain the power to change the lens through which you view them. This is the ultimate creative act, the conscious and deliberate shaping of your own subjective reality.
Number 43. The wisdom of uncertainty. Finding peace in not knowing. We have journeyed through a multitude of theories, a vast and varied landscape of human thought. We have explored the detailed, structured maps of ancient afterlives and the stark material conclusions of modern science. We have contemplated the possibilities of reincarnation, of final oblivion, of quantum souls, and of digital heavens. And now, after considering all these potential destinations, we arrive back at our starting point, at the one undeniable and perhaps most profound truth of all. We do not know. The great veil remains intact. This state of profound and inescapable uncertainty, this fundamental unknowing, can be a primary source of our deepest existential anxiety. The human mind, by its very nature, craves answers. It seeks patterns, it builds models, it desires certainty and control. But what if the ultimate answer, the greatest wisdom, lies not in finding a belief to cling to, but in learning to be at peace with the question itself? Finding peace in uncertainty is perhaps the final and most profound spiritual and philosophical practice. It is a conscious and courageous act of surrendering our deep-seated need for control. It is about releasing our attachment to a specific desired outcome, whether that is an eternal paradise or a peaceful nothingness. It involves humbly and honestly acknowledging the absolute limits of our human knowledge and learning to embrace the great mystery, not as a terrifying problem to be solved, but as an essential and even beautiful aspect of the human condition. This is not a passive resignation or a cynical giving up. It is an active and liberating choice to live with an open heart and an open mind, to find our grounding not in the fragile security of a belief, but in the quiet strength and courage it takes to face the unknown. This practice can be cultivated and strengthened through the gentle art of mindfulness and presence. By repeatedly and compassionately bringing our attention to the present moment, to the simple physical sensation of our breath flowing in and out, to the sounds that arise and fall away in our environment, to the feeling of being alive and aware right here, right now, we can find a sense of stability and peace that is completely independent of any future outcome. In the pure experience of the present moment, there is no past to regret and no future to fear. In the now, there is no fear of death, only the direct experience of life. By repeatedly returning our awareness to this simple grounding reality, we train our minds to be less consumed by anxieties about a future we cannot possibly know or control. We learn to trust in the unfolding process of life, to navigate its currents without needing a detailed map of the entire river. This is the subtle wisdom that echoes through many of the world's great spiritual traditions. It is the beginner's mind of Zen Buddhism, which is open to all possibilities and expert in none. It is the negative capability described by the poet John Keats, the ability to exist in uncertainties, mysteries, and doubts without any irritable reaching after fact and reason.
For our contemplation tonight, let go of the need for a definitive answer. Gently release the theories, the beliefs, and the fears we have explored. Simply allow yourself to rest in the quiet, open space of not knowing. Feel the profound and simple peace that can arise when we stop struggling for certainty and instead open ourselves to the vast, silent, and sacred mystery of it all. Can you find a sense of profound freedom in this ultimate uncertainty?
Number 44. The role of awe in embracing the mystery. As we learn to find peace in uncertainty, a new emotional landscape begins to open up to us. When we release the anxious struggle for answers, we create space for a more profound and enriching emotion to arise. This is the experience of awe. Awe is the feeling we have in the presence of something vast, something that transcends our ordinary understanding and forces us to reconfigure our mental models of the world. It is the emotion we feel when we look up at a star-filled night sky, when we stand before a towering mountain range, or when we contemplate a profound piece of art or a revolutionary scientific idea. It is a mixture of wonder, reverence, and a touch of fear, a feeling of being a small part of something immense and magnificent. Embracing the fundamental mysteries of reality is a direct pathway to cultivating awe. When we truly accept that we do not know what reality is, what consciousness is, or what happens after we die, we are placing ourselves in a constant state of relationship with the vast and the incomprehensible. The universe is no longer a collection of known facts to be categorized, but a living, breathing mystery to be marveled at. This perspective shifts our focus from what we know to the infinite, ever-expanding shoreline of what we don't know. And it is at this shoreline, where the small island of our knowledge meets the vast ocean of mystery, that the experience of awe is born. Studies in psychology have shown that the experience of awe has numerous benefits. It has been shown to decrease stress, increase feelings of generosity and connection to others, and diminish the focus on the small, self-centered ego. When we feel awe, our personal problems and anxieties tend to shrink in comparison to the vastness we are contemplating. We feel more connected to humanity, to nature, and to the cosmos as a whole. Awe has the power to pull us out of our narrow, self-absorbed narratives and place us within a much grander story. It is a profoundly healing and transformative emotion. Therefore, the contemplation of these deep, unanswerable questions is not a futile or depressing exercise. It is a practice for cultivating awe. It is a way of reminding ourselves of the incredible, improbable miracle of our own existence. We are conscious beings, born from stardust on a small planet, with the capacity to look out at the universe and be struck with wonder by its scale, its beauty, and its profound mystery. For our contemplation tonight, let go of the need to solve the puzzle of reality. Instead, simply allow yourself to be in awe of it. Feel the wonder of being a part of something so vast that it defies comprehension. Let this feeling of awe be a source of peace, of joy, and of a deep, quiet gratitude for the privilege of being here to witness the grand, unfolding mystery.
Number 45. The Authenticity Mandate. Living in an Unknowable World. In the face of a reality that is fundamentally uncertain and unknowable, a powerful and liberating imperative emerges. If there is no preordained script for us to follow, no universal purpose handed down from a higher power, and no single objective truth to guide our every action, then the responsibility for creating a meaningful life falls squarely upon our own shoulders. This is the authenticity mandate, a central concept in existentialist philosophy. It is the call to live a life that is true to oneself, to create one's own values, and to act in accordance with one's own deepest, most authentic being, in full awareness
of the profound freedom and responsibility that this entails. To live authentically means to stop looking for answers and validation outside of oneself. It means shedding the inauthentic masks we wear to please others, to fit into societal expectations, or to avoid the anxiety of being different. It is the process of turning inward, of listening to our own inner voice, and of having the courage to live in alignment with what we find there. The existentialist philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre famously stated that existence precedes essence. This means that we are not born with a fixed human nature or purpose. We are born into existence first, as a blank canvas, and it is through our choices and our actions that we create our own essence, our own definition of who we are. We are what we do. This freedom, however, is a double-edged sword. It is a magnificent gift, but it also carries what Sartre called a terrible responsibility. When we choose a value or an action, we are not just choosing for ourselves. We are, in that moment, making a statement about what we believe a human being ought to be. We are creating a piece of the human reality. This means that every choice matters. Living authentically is not about simply following our whims or indulging our desires. It is a rigorous and demanding process of self-examination, of taking full ownership of our freedom, and of creating a life that we can stand behind with integrity. In an unknowable world, our own authenticity becomes our only true compass. It is the anchor in a sea of uncertainty. When we cannot be sure of what is out there, we can at least strive to be sure of who we are in here. For our contemplation tonight, consider the concept of your own authentic self. What are the values that resonate most deeply with you, independent of what others might think? In what areas of your life are you wearing a mask, and what would it take to let it go? The deconstruction of reality does not have to lead to a paralyzing nihilism. Instead, it can clear the ground for the most important project of all, the construction of an authentic, meaningful, and self-chosen life.
Number 46. The interconnectedness of all things, a unifying principle. As our exploration of reality's many layers deepens, we begin to notice a recurring theme, a subtle thread that weaves its way through ancient mysticism, modern physics, and profound philosophy. This is the principle of interconnectedness. It is the idea that the universe is not a collection of separate, isolated objects, but a single, unified, and indivisible whole. Our perception of a world of distinct things and separate selves is, from this viewpoint, the most fundamental illusion of all. The reality is that everything is profoundly and inextricably linked in a vast, intricate web of relationships. From the perspective of modern physics, we see this in the phenomenon of quantum entanglement, where particles remain connected as a single system regardless of the distance separating them. We see it in the fact that every atom in our bodies was forged in the hearts of ancient, long-dead stars, linking us directly to the cosmic history of the universe. We see it in ecology, where every organism in an ecosystem is dependent on a complex web of other organisms for its survival, from the tallest tree to the smallest microbe in the soil. The physical world is not a collection of things, it is a network of interactions. From a philosophical and spiritual perspective, this idea is even more profound.
Many Eastern traditions, such as Buddhism and Taoism, are built upon the concept of non-duality. They teach that the separation between the self and the other, between the observer and the observed, is a fabrication of the egoic mind. The ultimate reality is a single, unified consciousness, a seamless whole, in which all things are an expression of the One. To achieve enlightenment is to directly experience this radical interconnectedness, to dissolve the illusion of the separate self, and to realize one's identity with the totality of existence. This principle offers a powerful antidote to the feelings of alienation, loneliness, and meaninglessness that can arise when we feel like separate, isolated beings in a vast, indifferent cosmos. It reframes our existence not as a solitary journey, but as a participation in a grand, cosmic dance. Every action we take, every thought we have, ripples out into this interconnected web, affecting the whole in ways we may never fully understand. This imbues our lives with a sense of profound responsibility and a deep sense of belonging. For our contemplation tonight, let go of the feeling of being a separate self. Try to feel your connection to the world around you. Feel the air you breathe as a part of you, the sounds you hear as a part of you, the ground beneath you as a part of you. What if you are not in the universe, but you are the universe, experiencing itself through a temporary, localized point of awareness?
Number 47. The Final Paradox: How a Finite Life Creates Infinite Meaning. We now arrive at what is perhaps the most profound, powerful, and central paradox of our entire exploration. It is an idea that flips our conventional thinking on its head. This is the concept that it is the very fact of our mortality, the undeniable reality of our finite existence, that gives our lives meaning, value, beauty, and urgency. If we were to live forever, if our time were infinite, then any single moment, any single choice, any single relationship would lose its precious and profound significance. There would always be another day, another year, another millennium to do what we have left undone, to say what we have left unsaid. Procrastination would become the ultimate state of being. But because our time is finite, because we know with certainty that our existence has an end, each moment becomes infinitely, heartbreakingly precious. This is the great and unexpected gift of death. It is the dark, velvet backdrop against which the brilliant, vibrant colors of life can truly be seen and appreciated. The awareness of our finitude is what motivates us to create, to love, to strive, to learn, and to experience the world with a sense of presence and deep appreciation. Why do we cherish the breathtaking beauty of a sunset? Because we know it is transient and will not last. Why do we value our relationships with those we love so deeply? Because we know that our time with them is limited and must be treasured. The very scarcity of time is what gives it its immense value. If we had an infinite supply of it, it would become as worthless as a single grain of sand on an endless beach. This idea is a cornerstone of existentialist philosophy. Thinkers like Martin Heidegger argued that living an authentic life requires a full awareness of one's own being towards death. By confronting our mortality directly, not with fear, but with clear-eyed courage, we are freed from the trivial concerns, the petty anxieties, and the inauthentic modes of living that society so often imposes on us. We are called to take full responsibility for our lives, to make conscious choices, and to live in a way that is true to our deepest, most authentic values. In this sense, death is not a terrifying specter to be avoided or denied. It is a wise and constant advisor, whispering quietly in our ear, Live now. Live fully. This is your moment. Do not waste it. For our contemplation on this theme, let us embrace this profound paradox. Let the awareness of your own mortality be not a source of fear or sadness, but a powerful source of inspiration and vitality. Let it be the catalyst that awakens you to the staggering beauty of the present moment. Think of one thing in your life that you truly, deeply cherish. Now consider how the knowledge that it is temporary, that it will not last forever, deepens and enriches your appreciation for it. The finality of death is not life's great curse, but its most profound blessing. It is the dark, silent frame that gives the masterpiece of our existence, its shape, its contrast, its beauty, and its ultimate, precious meaning.
Number 48. The Last Contemplation. What remains when all is questioned? And so, we arrive at the final reflection of our long and winding journey. We have systematically deconstructed the reality we take for granted, questioning the solidity of matter, the objectivity of our senses, the nature of time, the limits of our logic, and the very foundation of our own identity. We have stood at the precipice of the void and entertained the most radical of possibilities. After all of this, after every certainty has been unraveled and every foundation has been shaken, what remains? What is left when all is questioned? It is the quiet, luminous, and undeniable fact of awareness itself. It is the simple, profound, and mysterious reality of your own conscious experience, right here, right now. This awareness is the one thing that cannot be doubted. It is the screen upon which all the illusions, all the theories, and all the questions are projected. It is the silent, empty space in which all thoughts and sensations arise and pass away. Before any theory of reality, materialist, idealist, or simulated, there is the simple, self-evident truth of your own present moment experience. This is the ultimate ground of being, the one firm place to stand when all else is uncertain. It is the starting point and the ending point of our entire inquiry. To rest in this simple awareness is to find a profound sense of peace that is not dependent on any belief or any answer. It is a peace that comes from letting go of the need to know and simply being with what is. It is the recognition that, while we may never solve the ultimate riddle of reality, we can fully inhabit the mystery. We can live within the question, not with anxiety, but with a sense of open, curious, and gentle wonder. The goal of our journey was never to arrive at a final destination, but to cultivate a new way of traveling. As you now prepare to drift into the restorative silence of sleep, let this final contemplation be your anchor. Let go of all the complex ideas, all the mind-bending paradoxes, and simply return to the feeling of your own presence. Feel the gentle rise and fall of your breath. Notice the quiet stillness of the room around you. Rest in the simple, uncomplicated fact that you are aware. This awareness is the true magic, the ultimate mystery, and the final, irrefutable reality. Let the need for answers dissolve, replaced by a serene and joyful participation in the ongoing, beautiful enigma of existence. The great illusion is not a puzzle to be solved, but a dream to be experienced with grace, with courage, and with a profound sense of wonder. Let this wonder be the soft ground upon which you rest, and the quiet music that guides you into your dreams.